All right, I think we're going to go live. This is actually going to be a different title. This is shooting GoCoax. Moca. Hey, everybody. I forgot to update the title, so I need to do that real quick on YouTube, and we'll get Amazon going here. Presumably, you are all now stuck inside like I am. And I'll wait for the live stream to get live here, and hopefully some of you will tune in. And we've got some folks popping in. Lee is here, and Luli is here, and BB Garnett. All the usuals are stopping in. And it's weird. It says I've been streaming for 5 minutes, but I only just started a second ago. So Retro Drunkie is here from Seattle. I am doing well. I'm just stuck in my house, which I'm normally stuck in my house, but now I have to be stuck in my house. They haven't ordered it, but obviously there's no need to go out. Why bother? You know, we don't want to put anybody at risk. So we've been trying to shop around to some local businesses and stuff. So we've been able to so we got some, there's a really good bakery that my wife goes to all the time. So we got some cookies and stuff there. Got a couple days worth, hopefully. And we're going to go from there. So in case you were wondering, we've got a lot of folks from all over the world again. Javier is here from Uruguay. Awesome. So we are going to be looking today at these adapters from GoCoax. And these are Moca adapters. We haven't looked at Moca in a while. And yeah, I'm excited about this. And BB Garnett's wondering if these are made by, whatchamacallit, Action Tech. No, these are a different brand. And what's interesting about these is that these are Moca 2.5 adapters. Let me add that to the description here. So this one is going to give you 2.5 gigabits symmetrical between devices. And I'm going to explain this as I'm going to start shooting the video in a few minutes here. I did my intro already, but I'm just going to show you what's on here, and I'll probably be repeating it again. This is not a 2.5 gigabit Ethernet port. So unfortunately, you only get gigabit out. But the advantage is that you could presumably have two clients and servers communicating at full speed without impeding the network, because you have double the bandwidth between devices. So your backbone is better. So yeah, so we'll see what happens here. So we got some folks from India. Darlene is here saying California is told. Yeah, California's got pretty much everyone's using different wording. But the basic solution here is that if you don't have to go out, don't, because you put yourself at risk or you put people around you at risk. And for me, I'm just going to stay put. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do. So, and my hat's off to people in essential things like retail work and postal delivery and first responders and of course doctors and nurses, everybody that has to be putting themselves out there. I really appreciate what you're doing, and what we can all do is just stay put so that we don't spread it further. It looks like audio is desynced, so I'm going to just stop and start real quick. All right. We haven't had that audio syncing problem in a while, so hopefully that is better. Let me know if that works. And yeah, so yeah, there's been some controversies with a particular game retailer. Amazon is still shipping though. I've been ordering a lot of stuff from Amazon, things that I would normally go to the grocery store for. So all right, good. So audio is working now. Perfect. And that's why I like having you all in chat, because it really helps me out. So what I'm doing right now, I shot my intro already before I started streaming. So I'm going to do the hardware overview. And I will tell you, this has been a real project. These things work fine, I think. But the challenge was, how do I accurately build out a network? Because in order to test these, because we don't have a 2.5 gigabit connection on the device itself, we need to engineer a way in which we can push about 2 gigabits of data across the network, which I have engineered. So I set up a little Moca network down here. And let me show you actually what I'm doing so that you can get a feel for that. I'm just going to pull up my NDI camera here, and I'll show you how this was set up. So let me just switch this on here, and I got to activate input 7 on the TriCaster. So let's do that real quick. All right, and let me cut to 7, and hopefully the audio is not on 7. Yeah, we're clear. Okay, so I'm going to go cut to 7 here, and I'm going to show you. You all see that? I think I'm going to turn down my quality though. Let's knock it. There we go. Okay. That'll be a little better. Pardon the mess, but this is what we've got going on here. So I've got 3 of them right here. Actually, where's the 4th one? The 4th one was over here a second ago. The 4th one's on the desk. So I've got 3 of them here, and I basically set up a little cable network here. Now, if you're not familiar with these devices, what they do is they allow you to extend your network using your cable TV wiring. And so I've replicated a little cable TV thing here. We've got just a regular splitter, and we're going out to each of these things. Now you can share, the bandwidth is shared across these devices. So typically with one of, where did the other one go? I had one over here before. With the Moca 2.0, you'd get a gigabit over the wire in both directions. These will give you 2.5 gigabits over the coax, but you only get a gigabit out the Ethernet. So what the advantage here is that you could have a server communicating with a client on the network at a gigabit, and then you'd still have a gig left for other stuff. And that's kind of the advantage here, is you have a much wider backbone. The backbone is got more bandwidth than your clients will connect with individually. And the key with this stuff, and I'll explain this as we get through the video here, is you want to make sure all of your connections are super tight, because this is all analog. It's not digital, at least insofar as how these cables work. I guess all cables are kind of analog, but you're dealing with all of the nuances of coaxial cabling. And coax cable can have a lot of frequency on it, but, oops, my phone just rang. But you want to make sure that you are securely connected. So we're all good there. And I got to just turn off my phone here in a second. So yeah, that's what we are doing. Let me switch back here. And just give me 1 second. I just got to disconnect my phone over there because it's ringing. So the second I start working on, my phone didn't ring at all today until I sat down to start doing my work right now, and now it's ringing all the time. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is just go through the intro component of the hardware, and then I'm going to hook everything up. And then we're going to run a couple of tests. So I've already done I already did a test to upstairs, so I had like a long distance test done, so that's been fine. I'm noticing that the speeds are not as consistent as they are in the Action Tech, so there's a bit of a difference, and it's not a good one. So I don't know if it's the quality of my wiring, if the splitter I have, you know what I mean? So that's going to be some stuff we might come back and re-explore. Let me see. I'm going to be missing comments here, no doubt, because I'm using different equipment for everything today. Let's go through the... So David Parker's up in Maine. Everybody up there keeps to themselves, as we sort of do down here in my town, but I just miss going into New York City and all the traveling. I like to go places for work. So just bear with me for 1 second. I'm just pulling up another app here to get some stuff going. So yeah, so that's how these things work. They're pretty simple. And what's neat about them is that when you plug them in, they just work. There's nothing to do. It just connects. So that's what I like about them. And Patrick Burke says there are Moca-specific splitters that do make a difference. And yes, they are out there because they do allow for a broader frequency range. I'm finding, though, and you'll see when we go through some of the stuff we're doing in a few minutes, that these are, because there's actually a great web-based control panel on these, which you'll see in a few minutes. These are connecting at the full speed, and I'm getting close to gigabit, but it's varying a bit more. So that's part of it. And what I might do, this is my conundrum with this, is that I might try to get another splitter that maybe has a greater frequency range. From what I've been reading, it doesn't really matter so much because these things will kind of punch through. So we'll see how it goes. But this one's been, and actually I take that back because I have 2 splitters. I've got a 2-way and a 3-way, which we're using right now. what I might do when we get through the rest of this is get out the two-way splitter, because that one is a specific Moca splitter, and it might offer a little bit greater frequency range, just to make sure that we're correct here. It's not bad. You'll see it's pretty close to what I was getting with the Action Tech, but it's still not quite as good. And I just need to double check on that, and we'll figure it out. So, but thank you, Patrick, for that suggestion. And maybe we will kind of get to the bottom of that. All right, so let me pick up where I left off on the video, and then we'll start tinkering with this stuff. You know what I might do? Maybe what we'll do is we'll try it with my dedicated Moca splitter first. And the reason why, and I'll give you a preview here of what I have on the other computers. I've been running these iPerf tests. And so this is what I've been getting no matter where in the house I go with it. And my Action Tech was doing a little better than this. And so on a much more smaller cable loop here, I should be doing better than that. So that's been why I'm saying that. So what I think I might do is we'll hook up the other splitter first and run just a point-to-point. And if my three-way splitter is bad, what I'll probably do is just put this project on the shelf and order a better three-way splitter. Because in order to do this test properly, we need to have 4 of these things connected and communicating, because we have to push a gigabit to one and another gigabit to another one just to see how it works. But yeah, these things are great. There's no better network extension technology than Moca. Now let me give you some disclaimers as we start off here. I bought this one, and then I realized, I need 4 of these things. So I reached out to GoCoax, and they sent me 3 on loan. So the 3 that I have that I didn't pay for are going back to them. And the Moca Alliance, who develops the technology that so the standards body that develops the technology for all these devices, they have been a past sponsor on the channel, but they're not sponsoring this video. So just bear that in mind. But I got to know them, kind of like how I got to know the HD Home Run people, because they make it's a great standard. And this is so much better than Powerline. We've done a bunch of tests in some of my other videos about how much more reliable these things are. And they're often as good as Ethernet with a little bit of extra latency, but I mean milliseconds. It's not a big deal. And Travis Rhodes is saying that people on the SMB forums are saying they can only get about 700 or 800 megabits per second point-to-point with these. So that's what I'm experiencing also. But we'll be thorough. So what I'll do is, when we do the point-to-point test, we'll use that splitter that I have that is Moca on it, and it's got the 5 to 1675 megahertz range, and we'll make sure that the results we're getting when we run that are the same as what I just showed you with the computer there. All right. And Sam Adams brings up a good point too. Like, what's the point of gigabit if you're only getting 400 down, which is a very good point to make. I think where these things are necessary is when so let's say you're like me, you're pushing Blu-ray movies over the network, and you want to make sure you've got enough bandwidth for that and for your internet connection. Having a bigger backbone if you're using these is important, because when you look at, I should probably just start recording. When you look at an Ethernet switch, if I'm sending data from this room to the next room, it doesn't take away from the local network speed that all the other connections in the house get. So for example, if I'm on port 1 and I'm transmitting to port 2, that gigabit is there. But port 5 and 6 can also communicate at a gigabit, because that switch can accommodate full speed across all those ports, and the communications are largely isolated between those 2 ports. On Moca, you're sharing the bandwidth for every device in the house. So on a 16-port router, for example, you've got 16 gigabits of aggregate bandwidth. On these, you have 2.5 gigabits of aggregate bandwidth for everything. And that's the big difference. And that's what makes this so hard to describe to consumers. I get a lot of questions about, like, where do I plug this thing in? Is this separate from my cable modem? I mean, people have a hard time understanding that coax cable has a tremendous frequency range, and you can do a lot on it. So your cable modem is working on the same wire, essentially, that the rest of your house is, and it's just working on a different frequency. And that's often tough to kind of get people to understand. Okay, so let's go and do the hardware overview, and then we'll start hooking these things up and see how we do. My wife is going to take the kids out for a little walk outside. So I wait for them to stop screaming out there. You might be hearing them. Now what's funny is my 3-year-old, so this is funny. So my 3-year-old, maybe hear her screaming, she knows the name of her sister, obviously, but she doesn't call her by her name. She calls her sister. And I think the reason is that, you know, I'm daddy and mom is mommy. And so why would I call my sister by her name? I'm going to call her sister. So she never calls her Akira, which is her name. She calls her sister. It's kind of funny. So I hear her screaming for her sister. Sister, get out here. So they're going to go and walk around on the beach, even though it's a little chilly. And we just need to wait a second for stuff to happen here. So Patrick, I am not seeing any issues on the YouTube side. So I don't know if maybe you want to refresh. The network, you know, the CDNs are totally slammed right now because of everyone working from home. So I would imagine I am sharing bandwidth with all of the Google Meet sessions that are going on out there. Yeah, because right now, like my stream health, according to YouTube, is fine. So, and if there is a problem, it's due to my internet connection with Comcast. I am in a very bad area. All right, I think they're clearing out. So let's go and do a little recording here. And we'll go from there. 3, 2, 1. And by the way, I'm shooting the video in different parts here. So you'll see me maybe doing a few takes and stuff. You can see how the sausage is made. And T1M channel is here. Welcome. He is a member. Yes, thank you. You're a member. You don't need to tell us that many times. We appreciate your membership. But you are a member. And in fact, you have the little icon next to your name there. So you can see it there. Yeah, I think what happens, by the way, when you see the stream glitch a little bit, is that the way these live streams work is that they push you through a number of different CDNs. And so what happens is that if the CDN that you're connected to is getting overloaded, you're in deep trouble there. All right, you know, I'd hate to mute a member here, but he's really starting to spam up the thing here, so we're going to put him in timeout for a minute or two. Sorry about that. I know you're a member, but all right. So Small Tech Reviews wants an overview, and you just missed the overview, but I'll give it to you real quick. So what these are a way to extend your network using your cable TV wiring, and it's called Moca. This is a brand I hadn't played with before. This is from a company called GoCoax. And what you do is if you've got a room with the cable jack in there, you plug your cable jack in here, and then you can plug your cable box into the TV portion here, so you still get your TV service. And then you have an Ethernet jack here. And what these do is they bridge the network over your coax TV wiring. But again, it doesn't interfere with your TV signal. And as you see, you get a lot of really good signal quality with these things. And you get, in most cases, gigabit speed. Although in some of the testing I have been doing over the last day and a half, and I've been spending more time on this than I thought I would, because I'm seeing a lot of anomalous things compared to the other ones we've looked at. I'm seeing about, and I'll show you what I'm getting so far. And again, we're going to try one other thing before we make a final judgment on this. But I'm getting about 800 megabits per second, give or take. And this is just within a little local loop, although I'm seeing the same speeds when I'm firing it up to other parts of the house. But, I mean, this is great for a network extender, because you'll never see this on a power line adapter. You're lucky to get even 50 sometimes on power line, at least in my experience. So the coax really does a better job. Why we're looking at this one, and what's unique about it, is that these are based on the new Moca 2.5 standard. So they can push 2.5 gigabits per second within their network. So you don't get that out the back, but you do get it over the network. And I'm just realizing I'm going to be explaining this again in a second too, because I'm going to be doing a recording, but that's okay. It's good to get a few practice takes in here. So we're going to try to test and see if it can maintain that speed, because I've got 4 of them here that we're going to play with. Now, Monty brings up a really good question about dark coax in your house, because I have dark coax in my house that I'm not using anymore. So as many of you know, I still have cable TV service from Comcast, but I have the HD Home Run. So my coax essentially terminates in my equipment room over there, and then it all becomes just Ethernet, because I've got the HD home run that will grab that signal from the cable company and push it out on the network. So I've got cable jacks all over my house. Are you leaving?
Yes.
Okay.
Dirt
Okay, so you're getting dirt?
from over here.
Okay. The dirt is going to get on my carpet, or is it going to be okay?
No, it's in a bag.
Okay.
So provided it doesn't spontaneously combust.
Got it. Okay.
Walking through here, you should be good.
Good. My wife is getting dirt for her mother's garden. I told her to got to keep an arm's length. So, in any event, I have dark coax all over the house. So I can take these things, and whenever I need an Ethernet connection that's more stable than Wi-Fi and has more bandwidth, I can plug one of these in or one of the Action Tech ones in, and you can get all of that going. All right, see you later. And got to get the kids out of the house for a little bit because they're going to climb the walls in a few. So that is how it works. Okay, now what we're going to do. So I would imagine, by the way, Jerome was talking about some of the streamers having trouble this week. Yeah, I think what's going to happen here is, as far as the ISPs are concerned, they're going to prioritize traffic going. This is a net neutrality thing, by the way. They're going to prioritize traffic going to Zoom, to Google Meet, and your favorite YouTuber and Twitch streamer is not going to make the cut on that, I don't think, because there's a lot of, everyone's conducting just their normal workday over this stuff now, so that's probably going to impact things. And I'm having some issues now too. I've got an orange on my YouTube stream here, so we'll do our best here and see how this goes. But even if your wire is not dark, this will interoperate with cable TV and satellite, not over the air. So if you are running individual antenna connections, I don't believe it will share that bandwidth. All right, so I think, excuse me for 1 second. I think, by the way, I'm not sick. I just coughed. I think they're leaving now. So the other problem I've got, I'm waiting for the car to go and we can start. The other problem I have is that I get like spring allergies, so I'm like constantly checking my temperature now because I don't know what's going on. Although I think I came back from CES with I had COVID symptoms when I got back from CES. All right. Boris Kaya says, I'm saving people from during these difficult times. Yeah, I hope, it's just kind of fun to stream and have some connection to people. It's been tough because I do like to so part of my, as you know, I've been working at home now doing this for the last 2.5 years, and I've been purposely doing things that get me the opportunity to see people, because you could really go stir crazy when you don't leave the house. And so my routine used to be at 2 o'clock every day, I'd go out to my mailbox and get some coffee, go to the post office if I needed to, just to get out. And then I volunteered for a couple things related to my school board stuff, and I would go up to see people for that. So I had a lot of opportunities just to be connecting with people, which I no longer am doing, at least for the last week. So it's been a little rough. I've been pretty productive though, because I've been sitting here doing what I do. So it's pretty good. All right, so the car is leaving, so we can do our thing here. So let me cut to this. And once the garage door closes, which it's closing, and I think I can get started. The one problem with working in your house, as I do all the time, is that there's ambient sounds that work their way into the video. Children screaming, all sorts of crazy stuff. All right, so we're going to do my shot of the hardware. Keith Custer, by the way, has a Moca network for 3 years and loves it. Very stable for gaming. Yeah, it's so much better than Wi-Fi because everyone gets the same experience. It's much better. You don't get a lot of that packet loss when things get saturated. All right, so 3, 2, 1. So let's take a closer look now at the hardware. The price point on these are about $59 a piece, and you do need 2 really to get started. So what I do is I have one down by my router, and I have it plugged into that, and then I plug the router one into my cable TV wiring in my equipment closet. And then for every room where I want to add an extension, I just get another box and plug into the cable jack in that room. And what these do is allow you to continue using your TV service. So if you've got your cable box plugged into the wall, you take that wire out of the wall and you put it in here where it says TV, and then you connect the wall to the spot here that says Moca, and then your connection is made. And if you are just looking for a simple connection, you're done. Once you get these things connected, they will find each other and they'll bridge your computer network over your cable TV wiring. It's really, really simple. A little later in the video, though, we'll go into the control panel that you can access on each of these devices and see exactly how that connection is doing. But for most people, once you make that initial connection, you're done, and you'll get a really high quality, high bandwidth connection between different points in your house that I think is a lot better than Wi-Fi. Now on the back here, you've got an Ethernet jack. Unfortunately, this is only gigabit Ethernet. Now for most people, that's going to be fine. But you will not be able to get the full speed of the adapter to each client. The speed is going to be shared by all the adapters in the house. So if you do have clients that are frequently sending large files to each other, you can have more people doing that at the same time on your network than you would with the prior generation Moca, because now you've got 2.5 gigabits versus just 1 gigabit. And that will allow more data to be transited across your network at the same time over the coax. But all of these devices on your network share that 2.5 gigabits, but having that greater backbone, I think, for some instances will be a very big improvement. Your power goes in here. On the top, you've got a security button, and we'll talk about this later in the video. So what you can do is pair these up by pushing this button here. And when you do that, the traffic is encrypted between the different clients so that if somebody were to try to snoop in on your network, they won't be able to access the contents of the data that are going across. And you get some indicator lights here for what you're experiencing on your network. So once you connect it to coax, you'll see that Moca light up. When you connect your Ethernet up, that will light up, and of course the power light will be there as well. Very simple to get going, and what we're going to do now is start with a very basic speed test to see how fast things can go between 2 points. So hopefully that made sense to everybody. Let me know. And let me just put this in here. And I just want to make sure that this made sense. I'm going to play this back. I just need to watch this to make sure that I've got what I'm looking for here. So let me just hit the play button. 3, 2, 1. So let's take a closer look now at the hardware. The price point on these are about $59 a piece, and you do need 2 really to get started. So what I do is I have one down by my router, and I have it plugged into that, and then I plug the router one into my cable TV wiring in my equipment closet. And then for every room where I want to add an extension, I just get another box and plug into the cable jack in that room. And what these do is allow you to continue using your TV service. So if you've got your cable box plugged into the wall, you take that wire out of the wall and you put it in here where it says TV, and then you connect the wall to the spot here that says Moca, and then your connection is made. And if you are just looking for a simple connection, you're done. Once you get these things connected, they will find each other and they'll bridge your computer network over your cable TV wiring. It's really, really simple. A little later in the video, though, we'll go into the control panel that you can access on each of these devices and see exactly how that connection is doing. But for most people, once you make that initial connection, you're done, and you'll get a really high quality, high bandwidth connection between different points in your house that I think is a lot better than Wi-Fi. Now on the back here, you've got an Ethernet jack. Unfortunately, this is only gigabit Ethernet. Now for most people, that's going to be fine. but you will not be able to get the full speed of the adapter to each client. The speed is going to be shared by all the adapters in the house. So if you do have clients that are frequently sending large files to each other, you can have more people doing that at the same time on your network than you would with the prior generation Moca, because now you've got 2.5 gigabits versus just 1 gigabit. And that will allow more data to be transited across your network at the same time over the coax. But all of these devices on your network share that 2.5 gigabits, but having that greater backbone, I think, for some instances will be a very big improvement. Your power goes in here. On the top, you've got a security button, and we'll talk about this later in the video. So what you can do is pair these up by pushing this button here. And when you do that, the traffic is encrypted between the different clients so that if somebody were to try to snoop in on your network, they won't be able to access the contents of the data that are going across. And you get some indicator lights here for what you're experiencing on your network. So once you connect it to coax, you'll see that Moca light up. When you connect your Ethernet up, that will light up, and of course the power light will be there as well. Very simple to get going, and what we're going to do now is start with a very basic speed test to see how fast things can go between 2 points. Right. So I think my only concern, this is the problem when I do these kinds of videos. This stuff is easy to set up, but it's hard to understand, right? So I want to make sure that people are understanding the fact that you've got to have one near your router, because if you don't, you can't connect to anything, right? It's not going to work. I think I got that across at the beginning. I'm just going to play back the beginning part again, just to see. And by the way, I do have encryption disabled right now, Travis. So I'm going to we're definitely going to look at speed when we do enable that, because I haven't yet tested the security component yet. Let me just play the beginning part back. A closer look now at the hardware. The price point on these are about $59 a piece, and you do need two really to get started. So what I do is I have one down by my router, and I have it plugged into that, and then I plug the router one into my cable TV wiring in my equipment closet. And then for every room where I want to add an extension, I just get another box and plug into the cable jack in that room. And what these do is allow you to continue using your TV service. So if you've got your cable box plugged into the wall, you take that wire out of the wall and you put it in here where it says TV, and then you connect the wall to the spot here that says Moca, and then your connection is made. And if you are just looking for a simple connection, you're done. Once you get these things connected, they will find each other and they'll bridge your computer network over your cable TV wiring. It's really, really simple. A little later in the video, though, we'll go into the control panel that you can access on each of these devices and see exactly how that connection is doing. But for most people, once you make that initial connection, you're done. All right, I think I covered it. So some questions. So William Thomas brings up a good point, because many routers already that you get from your cable company support Moca, so you might be all set there. The difference, though, is that a lot of times those cable modems have Moca 1.0, which is 100 megabit. So if you wanted it to be faster, you would need to still get an extra one of these to start that bridge. As Travis answered this question already from somebody in there about whether or not they're working with the Action Tech. They will. In fact, it's pretty cool when you go into the control panel, you'll actually be able to see those connections and what speeds they're running at. All right, so you may not see me for a minute. I'll be talking. We're going to hook some of these things up, and what I'm going to do first is just to rule out the issue of the splitter. I've got two splitters here. I've got a 2-way and a 3-way, and we need 4 to make this work. But let me show you what I am looking at here. So we're going to first run with this splitter here. I don't know why I'm getting this call now when I told them I was doing it on Monday. Give me 1 second, folks. Pardon me for 1 second. I just got to look up something real quick. All right, almost there, folks. Hang on one sec. Sorry, just somebody scheduled something. I hate when people schedule things. Okay. All right. So I've got a, let's see, this is a 5 to 1675 splitter. And in a lot of the splitters that you've got in your house are 5 to 1 gigahertz. And I've read that it shouldn't impact Moca traffic, even if it is that. But we'll see how this one does. So we'll just do that speed test again, because again, this is what we were seeing. And it looks like, I think it was Travis, somebody in the chat said that the most that people were seeing were about 800 megabits per second over these adapters. And that's what I've been experiencing also. But I do want to do my due diligence here and make sure that if it is in fact a splitter, that that's not the cause of it. Because the Action Tech, I did find, were doing a little better, even over longer distances. So what I'm going to do first here is get a couple of these things interconnected. And what I've got is a little network set up between a few of these boxes. And actually, I could probably do a point-to-point right on the desk there. So let me disconnect this one. This will be actually kind of a good experiment, because we can show everything coming live. So I'm going to grab, and I've been tinkering with these things. This was like half the day yesterday and a good chunk of this morning, just trying to figure out how to make this work. And I've been having trouble with the iPerf test also, because the client that I'm using on the Mac doesn't communicate well with Windows. So that's been a bit of a challenge as well. All right, so we're going to connect. And what I'm going to do, folks, is I'm going to, actually, you know what I could do? I could just plug these right into each other. There's no reason why that wouldn't work. So let's take the best case scenario here. Short coax cable, direct connection, and we don't have to worry about the splitter at all. And then we'll really see what the differences are here. And then I will hook up the other system that we're working with here and try that out. And actually, that'll be a good replication of what we did with the Action Tech when I first reviewed it too. So let's disconnect all these things. Start from scratch here. And it's complicated because it'd be great if these just had a 2.5 gig connection. I could easily get it to work. But because it doesn't, we have to do a little bit more complicated. A little bit more of a complicated thing. So, all right, so we're going to, and I'll give you an overhead of what I'm working on here. Let me pull the camera back a little bit so we can get a better view of that. So I'll pull this up here so you can see. Oops. So we got two of these guys here. And I'm just going to connect Moca to Moca. And we're going to plug them in. Plug the first one in. And we'll plug the second one in. And then I got to zoom my camera out so I can get a better shot of the table. So when you're doing these tests, I think it's really important for people to see exactly what it is you're doing so they can understand the full scope of everything. And I found the iPerf test to be really the best way to go about them. All right, so now we got to get some patch cables out and plug some Ethernet in. Ooh, ouch, that hurt. So let me grab that one, and we got a cable here and a cable there. So we're going to plug this guy in here. And I just got to set up some IP addresses and stuff because we're not going to have a DHCP connection. And then I've got my little dock here. I'll plug that in there. And then we'll route that around to that one. Okay. So now what we should see on the overhead are a bunch of lights, which we do. And I just want to redo this cable so it doesn't get tangled up in the other one. All right. Okay. So now I've just got to go in and set IP addresses up on these guys. So let's do that real quick. And I'm probably going to want to go back and just watch my Action Tech video just to make sure that I'm correct in what my recollection was. So let me just go into my thing here. Network. Okay, so this is 0.5. I'm just going to write these down. So we're going to connect to 0.5. All right, so I'm going to do a quick test now just to see what happens here. So let me pull up my little MacBook, and this is going to be a point-to-point test in a perfect scenario here. So let's take a look. And off we go. Okay. Yeah, so you know what it was, the splitter. Well then, oh, wait a minute. It wasn't the splitter. And this is going to run for 30 seconds here so we can get a feel for, okay, so that test is done. So let's compare this one, which we just did, to the one we did before. Yeah, okay, so the next thing here is let's see. So this might delay my video, and the reason is that I'm going to need to get that other splitter in because it looks like I'm getting a much better connection here because this is not what I was getting before. So here's the test now, and this was through the other splitter. So why don't we take a look now with the two-way splitter and see if that has any impact here. And I think this might be some of the differences here between Moca 2.0 and Moca 2.5, because I never had issues with splitters on Moca 2.0. It just worked. So I'm going to plug this one in here. Now, what happens when you use a splitter is that you decrease your power because you're splitting the signal. And so in a house where you've got a lot of splitters, it can become really problematic. And actually, I had an issue when I first moved into this house. They have a minimum of 2 cable jacks per room. It's crazy. And so the cable here was split 3. I mean, it was crazy. They have one cable from down here to upstairs, and then they have it split out. There's 4 or 5 rooms up there, and they've got at least 2 cable jacks per room. So they brought it upstairs, no amplifier. They split it out, I think it's like 6 different ways. And then within the rooms, they had splitters in the wall. So when I first moved in, I had cable jacks all over the place, but nothing worked because the signal was so weak. And even with an amplifier, it wasn't enough because things were just split so much. So I had to go into each of the walls and take apart all the splitters. And then I kid you not, for some odd reason, there is an outlet and a cable jack on the ceiling of my bedroom. And I'm as lazy as the next guy, but All right, Mr. Channel here, I'm really sorry, but I just can't have you do this anymore. We already answered your question. You're really, I just can't have you here, sorry. Okay, so we're going to go and get this going. So we got the splitter connected. I'm just going to connect it into here and see if this impacts the speed at all. So I'll have it renegotiate the connection. All right. And if he's wondering, he could watch the review I did of that iPod Touch, because that's why I do the reviews. Okay, so we're going to plug this in here. And we'll see what happens now. Okay, so here's what we've got. And I know I've got some coax experts in the room here. So I got it going in from this one, and then it's splitting out to this one. This is a Verizon Moca splitter. All right, so let's go and look at this, and we're going to run it again. And let's see what we get. Oh, the Moca hasn't reestablished itself, so let's wait a second for that. And we'll just give it a second. And we have to cut power to these guys and reconnect them. Yeah, let me kill power to these and reconnect. Yeah, so I used to deal with coax Ethernet also. I used to have to, you already had to terminate every spot, even if it had nothing going on there. So I remember having to just run the cables to terminate everything. You had all the collisions. Oh my gosh, we had Lon.TV at my old office back when I was a kid, my dad's office. It looks like, see, it's funny. This was working in a different configuration, but the Moca is not coming back up here. Let's see. I wonder if I got to put them on the same leg of the splitter. Yeah, I wonder if I do have to terminate that other port. That could very well be the case. You know what I'm going to try here? I'm going to put them on the same leg here. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to, yes, all of them are on the same firmware. I did check that. I am going to just bring in another one and just have it on the network, because we're not going to use it, just to have it there. I think that might resolve the issue. So let's grab another cable here. And all this wiring I did before, I'm going to have to do all over again. And it's hard to work with the coax cable. It is not as flexible as my Ethernet cables are. I've got it all over the office right now because I was trying to hook up all these different things, and very complicated. Oh, now it's up. Of course, after I get up, it's working. Okay, so we're good. Just took it a minute to negotiate, it looks like. Yeah, both adapters are on. Okay, so let's go and do a quick test here. All right, so now this is with the splitter, but this is the Moca splitter. Yeah, that's doing much better. Much, much better. Okay, so it was the splitter. That was it. And this is going to be an issue because you're going to have to go through your house and kind of find all the splitters that are that are problematic. It's actually working better on the splitter than it was without the splitter. And my guess would be that it was too much power going back and forth. So one of the things that I've learned in my own home with cable wiring, and this is part of my actual connection to the pole, they fixed it eventually, but my connection to the pole was so good that they had to put in a little signal dampener just to get it to work correctly, because it was overpowering when it came in. All right, so that is interesting. So now we got to figure out a way to make this all work. I'm guessing, and you all can tell me better than me. I'm guessing I can't connect another one of these through the TV. But let's try it because I lack a 3-way splitter to do the full gigabit test here, which means that I might have to come back and revisit this topic after I order a splitter. And as you know, there's a bit of a shipment delay going on right now. So I may not be able to get it until like Tuesday or Wednesday. So it might delay things a little bit. Let's see here. So we've got 2 connected now. I can get a 3rd one on. And the question is, could we have another one running through the TV connector? And I would doubt that you could, because my guess is that they filter out the Moca on the TV one. But we'll see. Let's get this one going. If it does work, then we'll just roll it this way. Well, that's good that we thought to try that, because that would have been an issue. Now, just so you understand what the problem is, let me show you exactly the differences here. So the splitter I was using before, and this, by the way, is the same splitter that I've got throughout my house. Let me see if I can get the camera to focus on it. So you can see the frequency range is 5 to 1,000 megahertz. And that means it's chopping off or unable to communicate anything above 1,000 megahertz. And Moca, I think some channels on Moca go above 1 gigahertz. And if your splitter doesn't allow that signal to transit, then you won't get it. And what we were seeing was a reduction. It wasn't like bad, but it was 200 megabits or so less than we're getting now with a proper Moca splitter. So that is that. And then GoCoax is the frequency range for the TV out on the adapter is 5 to 1002 megahertz. So that's going to, okay, so that creates, so we got to figure out here, folks, we don't have a splitter to get 4 of these things connected at the same time. And from what Zosu just tells me is that they are filtering on inside the adapter, because TVs don't use, so TVs don't operate on the same signal frequency that Moca does, which is why it works and doesn't interfere with what you're doing. So we're going to have to be a little clever about this. I'm going to check in my back closet. I've got splitters all over the place, but the only Moca splitter I've got was that one. But let me see if I have perhaps another one, because I'd really like to get the full video done today. And I was looking around. I've got everything's like 5 to 1,000. Not the other frequency, sadly. Let's see if I can find another one in here. But what I might do instead is maybe we can jump through some of the other components that we can shoot today, so we're not totally wasting valuable production time. And then I can order that splitter. Oh, there's another splitter in here. What is this? Let's see. Nope. Also 5 to 1,000. So what I think we're going to do is I'm going to order that 3-way Moca splitter, and then we'll do. So what we can do though in the interim. So this is going to be a little bit of a wacky video. So what we're going to do first, because here's what we need to be able to do. And actually, Eric has got a question that is totally relevant to exactly what we're doing right now. He wants to know, I was about to ask, who can recommend a splitter for Moca, local store versus Amazon? So you might be able to find one at a local store. What you want to look for, let me show you the one I have here now that we know is working properly. And I think especially for this faster Moca 2.5, because you're pushing an extra gigabit now, and I'm guessing that's a lot of bandwidth on, a lot of frequency bandwidth that you got to deal with. So the splitter you need is one that can go to what you see here, 1675 megahertz. Let me zoom in a little bit more. My camera doesn't usually focus very well this close in. But I will pull one up on Amazon because I'm about to order one. So there you go. So you want to make sure it can do 5 to 1675 at least. And what I'm going to do, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to go and find one on Amazon, and we're going to throw it on the Amazon stream so you can find the right splitter. So what we're going to do is we're not going to be able to do the backbone test because I don't have a way of connecting 4 of these together because of the splitter problem. So what we're going to do is do the one-to-one test, which we just ran off camera, or with you. And then I'm going to then get that splitter in. We'll do another live stream where we'll get all the stuff that I spent the last 2 days setting up. We'll run that just to add that clip to the rest of the video. But I can shoot the entire video now. Just that bandwidth test is the one we can't do. So let me just find this piece real quick, and then I will show you which one I'm going to buy. And I'm going to add it to the product carousel on the thing here. And this is one of the things that people run into with Moca is that it's not complicated, but if you're looking to squeeze the absolute best performance out of it, you need to have the right splitters, and making sure your cables are good. Good cable connections are important, tightening things up. And I've done a lot of content on this too, so if you're interested, if you go to Lon.TV/Moca, it should work. Okay, so Monty's been really helpful here. So the BAMF coax cable splitter, bidirectional. And there's a 2 to 20, yep, okay, that's the one I'm seeing here. So let's take a look and see what we got. And we need a 3-way one though. Not a 6-way, there's a 4-way. I could probably do the 4-way, couldn't I, if there's no, let's see here. I'm just looking here. I got to find a. I'm going to probably go with the 4-way, and then I'm going to need a terminator. Perhaps maybe we'll get one just to be safe. All right, so this is the one I'm going to be looking at here. Let me pull this up on the screen for you, and I'm going to also add this to the product carousel on Amazon Live here. So bear with me. I'm going to add it to the carousel first. If you're watching on Amazon, it'll pop up on you. And this is part of my workflow, is that you will sometimes have situations where I'll be like halfway through shooting something, and I'll discover like something's not working properly, and usually it's my fault. And in this case, it is my fault because I didn't have the right splitter. And I said, you know what? Let me try it with the 3-way, and it sure enough worked. But as I discovered, it actually resulted in a decrease in speed. And you got, oh, they do have a 3-way. Okay, so let me just add this to the stream here, and this one, and we'll add the 2-way. So I'm going to add all 3 splitters that are going to work with this, and you can see them. So those are now added to the live stream on Amazon. So if you click over to Amazon, the one I'm going to buy is now profiled. And let me just select it here on the web browser so I can actually purchase one. Yep, that's the one right there. Okay. And let's see, when would we get this? It's available from BAMF Manufacturing. Let me switch over to the screen here so you can all see what it looks like. And I'm going to get that one. So that's the one I'm going to get. And if I'm wrong, let me know. Okay, so we're going to buy this one right now. And it looks like it doesn't even have a delivery date. So I may not get this till Thursday of next week. But that's to be understandable with all of the situation right now. But that's okay, because we can get most of this video done, and then when it shows up, we'll do the last part of it. And I got plenty of other content, folks, for you, so don't worry. And what we're probably going to do soon, too, so the next live stream, I'm not done yet, by the way. We're going to still do some more stuff. The next live stream is going to be a bunch of odds and ends that I've got. And that one's going to happen pretty soon. And then I've been testing all of my SD cards also, because that SD card video was really interesting. All right, so I'm going to order this one now. So that's $13. So not that expensive either. And let's place my order for that. That'll cover the full frequency range that we need for this to work. So I'm going to place my order. All right. And it'll get here when it gets here. Okay. So we will see what happens. So Sean Kucher wants to know, how does this compare to HomePlug AV2? Well, it is night and day. And as I'll show you here, I'll just show you the test results again. As you can see here, we just ran, just with the splitter, like a real short range test. But this is Ethernet speed. I mean, this is, if I were to plug in Ethernet between these two computers, that's what you would see. So there's no degradation in speed. What impacts speed, of course, is the splitters, the length of your cabling, the interference perhaps that you might have on your wire. So you want to make sure everything's tightened up. But generally, I have found for a network extender that's not Ethernet, this is as close to Ethernet as you're going to get. So we're going to do a couple of tests here to record on. Another one that you'll want to do is a latency test. So if we just ping, for example, let me just get my terminal window up here. If we were to do a ping, let's see, oops. Let's go back to, I'm just trying to find the best way to just demonstrate the ping here. Yeah, I know how to do it. Hang on a sec. Let's do a backdrop. And we'll do this. And then the IP that we're connecting to is 5. 2168.254.5. So the one thing that you're going to see different here, let me show you my ping that's going on, is that on Ethernet you would have a little lower latency. So you're looking at about, a couple milliseconds of added latency here, but not a lot. If you're gaming, you would see an extra 2 or 3 milliseconds in your ping time to the server, for example. But not a bad connection at all. And I found over the years that with Powerline, I could get a serviceable internet connection, but I didn't get the speeds that I was getting here. And so that's one of the advantages of going with Moca over the regular thing. So what we're going to do now is set up for our next shot. And I'm going to need to, we're going to need to come back to this video next week, but I have enough to do everything but the bulk speed test. So we're going to tease it, but we're not actually going to do it because we don't have the right splitter. And I think it'll be a good opportunity to explain some of the parts that are needed there too. Is this a cool mug? We had a PTO fundraiser called Square Art, and my daughter drew this really cool picture that's on my mug. Isn't that nice? So that's that. Travis has got to clock back in. Time to get back to work. It's so weird to work from home for a lot of folks. It's been funny because I've been working from home for a while now, and for me it's just another day at the office, but a lot of my friends have been having a hard time adjusting. And what I found the key to work at home success, or at least work at home focus, is creating a workspace that you only do your work in. And what's funny was when I built the studio down here, when I had the guys come in and renovate the basement, I was like building out like different man cave relaxation like spots where I could hang out, and I never come down here when I'm not working. I just can't, like my brain doesn't wrap around it. So that's that. Cosmo wants to know, is the bandwidth shared? Yes, the bandwidth is shared. And so the advantage that we were going to explore with these, which we have to come back to, is that they have more shared bandwidth between them. So these have 2.5 gigabits between them, and the other Moca devices typically only have 1. So you get more of a backbone. All right. So I am going to set up the shot here. This looks terrible, but this is the reality of dealing with this stuff. And I'm going to shoot a little bit of B-roll on the adapters here too on my phone. So let me just do that real quick just to get that. I don't usually do a lot of B-roll in my videos, but this time we kind of need to. Just to kind of show exactly how we have everything set up. And one of them's upside down, I know, but it's okay. Now what's interesting though is that this one, the LAN light is like blinking on and off, and this one's lit up solid. So I don't know why one is doing that versus the other, but let's get a little closer B-roll on this one. The iPhone is great for B-roll. And I usually get about 20 seconds just to have some room there for Jake to work with. Okay. Okay, so now, I'm gonna dust off my MacBook here. What's funny is that you see dust on camera that I don't see in person. It just reflects off of the little nuances of the little, they have like that perforation on the metal. Style Freaks wants to know if these generate heat. Yeah, they do get a little warm, not terribly. We should probably do a test with my kilowatt in a little bit too. All right, so let us record the next segment. I'm going to clear out the test here. Yeah, let me just clear this out. Okay. And I think what we'll do is we'll cut to that screen once we start going here. And then I'll put the server thing up so we can see that connection going. All right. So Barris is setting up an actual office in his house for me always to work from home. And it did wonders. But now his wife occupies it because it helps her work from home too. Yeah, that's the only downside is that. But I'll tell you what, having a workspace that, it's a psychological thing. It's really weird. I mean, honestly, like there will be weekends where I never come down here, like ever. Like it's like the weekend hits, I'm caught up in my work, and I want to take the weekend off. I don't come down. I just don't come down. It's really weird. And I never thought it would be like that. I thought I'd be hanging out down here a lot more often, and I really don't. Okay. So let us pick it up here. So we're going to do a little speed test and kind of explain what we have set up. And then we'll go from there. So let me go into my recorder here. 3, 2, 1. Actually, how did I end the last clip? We haven't looked at this in a while. Let me just take a look here. Your Ethernet up, that will light up, and of course the power light will be there as well. Very simple to get going, and what we're going to do now is start with a very basic speed test to see how fast things can go between 2 points. Perfect. Marvelous. Okay, so mute that. All right. So now, yeah, I'll get my kilowatt out and we'll just test the power on it real quick. I think the kilowatt, I don't know where I put the kilowatt. My biggest problem is that I don't put things away, and I can never find things. And I'm really trying to do better, and I just never get better at it. Okay. 3, 2, 1. All right, I apologize for the mess here on the desk, but I wanted to get a little cable network set up here so we can do a point-to-point test of these Moca adapters. Now what I've done here is I'm running things through a Moca splitter, and I'm finding that you probably want to get a Moca splitter all across your house if you do have a lot of splitters in use, because these things do operate at frequencies that sometimes go beyond what the cable companies provide, and they have, actually I need to explain that better. 3, 2, 1. All right, so we've got a little network here set up on the desk. This is kind of an ideal situation just to get the best possible throughput. And what I've got here are the 2 Moca adapters connected to each other via coax cables. And then each of these laptops is connected via Ethernet to the back of these devices. So what's happening here is that this MacBook is going to send data through its Ethernet cable. The adapter will take that data, push it out over coax. It will go into this adapter and then pop out of the other Ethernet cable to this laptop. So it is traversing the coax here to make it all work. I have a splitter in between. This is a Moca certified splitter, and for the best performance with these, I'm finding you do need to make sure you've got a Moca splitter that has a wider frequency range. So this one runs at 5 to 1,675 megahertz. There are some that go even further now that you may want to look at, and I'll put some links down below to the splitters that I recommend. This splitter was all over my house. I had a bunch of these all over the place when I moved in. And this one only goes 5 to 1,000 megahertz, and it actually was impeding the maximum bandwidth as I was testing this. So you might find your own situation to be different than what we're about to test here on the desk, because we've got the ideal setup going here. We've got splitters that support the frequency range required. Your home may not have the right splitters, and you might have to go and troubleshoot a bit to get things working. It'll work fine, but it may not work to its highest potential unless you get all of the right splitters hooked up in the right places. And we can have a discussion about that in a future video. So what I'm going to do now here is run the test. We're going to push data from one to the other and see what happens. So let me initiate it now, and that connection is going to be made. And if we look at the screen here and see the bandwidth we're getting, as you can see, we're pushing pretty much what I would get on a straight up Ethernet connection between the two. Really quick here, running at gigabit speeds. We're not getting 2.5 gigabits, remember, because the Ethernet jacks on these Moca adapters can only do a gigabit each. But in a minute, we're going to hook up another 2 of these and see if we can have 2 of these tests running at this speed simultaneously, which we couldn't do with the prior generation of Moca. All right. So what do you all think of that? Did that work for you? I want to know if that works for you, because I'm getting a lot of valuable input while I record these videos live with you all. And I'm finding that the videos are doing better because they're making, like, the questions that I'm getting from the chat room inform the video itself, and that's been working better. And I'm going to get some B-roll of this splitter also so we can see the differences here. And we're just going to do about 10 seconds of that. All right, and then we're going to get a little bit on the... I think I should get this one a little bit oriented a little bit differently here. There we go. Okay. Okay, so Boris thinks that looks good. I'm going to play it back, though, just so I can get my own feel for it. And then we'll talk about latency. And then we're going to skip the 4-way test, because I have to get that splitter in. And it may not come till next Thursday, so this video might be delayed a bit. And then we'll move on to the techie stuff. And I can get 3 of these going, so we should be able to test the security. And that's the one I'm dreading because it looks complicated, at least from the standpoint of setup. All right, so let me go over to the recording here. I'm going to play this back real quick and get your feedback. 3, 2, 1. All right, so we've got a little network here set up on the desk. This is kind of an ideal situation just to get the best possible throughput. And what I've got here are the 2 Moca adapters connected to each other via coax cables. And then each of these laptops is connected via Ethernet to the back of these devices. So what's happening here is that this MacBook is going to send data through its Ethernet cable. The adapter will take that data, push it out over coax. It will go into this adapter and then pop out of the other Ethernet cable to this laptop. So it is traversing the coax here to make it all work. I have a splitter in between. This is a Moca certified splitter. And for the best performance with these, I'm finding you do need to make sure you've got a Moca splitter that has a wider frequency range. So this one runs at 5 to 1,675 megahertz. There are some that go even further now that you may want to look at, and I'll put some links down below to the splitters that I recommend. This splitter was all over my house. I had a bunch of these all over the place when I moved in. And this one only goes 5 to 1,000 megahertz, and it actually was impeding the maximum bandwidth as I was testing this. So you might find your own situation to be different than what we're about to test here on the desk, because we've got the ideal setup going here. We've got splitters that support the frequency range required. Your home may not have the right splitters, and you might have to go and troubleshoot a bit to get things working. It'll work fine, but it may not work to its highest potential unless you get all of the right splitters hooked up in the right places. And we can have a discussion about that in a future video. So what I'm going to do now here is run the test. We're going to push data from one to the other and see what happens. So let me initiate it now, and that connection is going to be made. And if we look at the screen here and see the bandwidth we're getting, as you can see, we're pushing pretty much what I would get on a straight up Ethernet connection between the two. Really quick here, running at gigabit speeds. We're not getting 2.5 gigabits, remember, because the Ethernet jacks on these Moca adapters can only do a gigabit each. But in a minute, we're going to hook up another 2 of these and see if we can have 2 of these tests running at this speed simultaneously, which we couldn't do with the prior generation of Moca. Okay, all right. And JFZ actually had a very good question, like why are we even bothering with the splitter when they're right next to each other? So I'm going to explain that in a second, and then we'll do the latency test. Okay. That's a very good question, JFC. We're going to answer that for sure. 3, 2, 1. Now you might be wondering, if we're just doing a tabletop exercise here, why do we have a splitter hooked up? Well, the reason is that I have a very short cable here, and we were seeing some speed degradation just to the signal being too strong. So the splitter here is able to tamp down that signal a bit to make it work the way it would on a longer cable run, for example. But again, if you have splitters in your house, you definitely want to make sure they're Moca compatible splitters to get the most out of these 2 boxes. You will get them to work fine usually again, but let me start again. I think 3, 2, 1. Now, one thing you might be wondering is, why are we running a splitter on a tabletop exercise here? Well, the reason is that when we had them connected with just the cable on a very short run, it was a bit overpowering, and we were seeing a degradation in performance. So having the splitter here kind of weakens the signal between these 2 boxes on the table here, but it's still important to make sure that you've got Moca compatible splitters throughout the house just to be able to get the full performance out of these 2 devices. I'm going to say this one more time because I want to make a little bit more clear. So one more time. 3, 2, 1. Now you might be wondering why we are using a splitter on a tabletop exercise. Well, when we were first testing this out on a live stream a bit earlier, we were finding that the short cable length here was overpowering the signal between the 2. It's just too much of a signal going through. So one more time. 3, 2, 1. Now you might be wondering, in a tabletop exercise here, why we're using a splitter with only 2 devices. Why not just hook them up directly? Well, the reason is that we found the signal was too strong with this short cable. So putting the splitter in the mix weakened the signal a little bit to make it better. So we got the right performance out of this. If you just have like a big long cable in your house, you won't need a splitter at all. But if you are having your cable run to multiple rooms, you likely have splitters in different portions of the home, and you're going to want to make sure that you've got Moca compatible splitters that you're using for those rooms, because these things will operate at frequency ranges that some splitters may filter out. So Moca compatible splitters are definitely the ones to look for, and we'll have a link down below to some that I recommend you try. All right, I think that one worked. Elaine N is wondering, what's the speed test we're using? So we are running something called Wi-Fi perf, which is using the iPerf test, which is it's an open source project to just push data over a network to get the maximum sustained sequential data speed, just to see if you're getting your full money's worth out of your network. So Wi-Fi perf is free on the Mac only. But you can go to iPerf on Google and you'll find the website for the iPerf project. It's usually a command line application. But I found using Wi-Fi perf is better for YouTube, just because it's a little bit easier for viewers to see on screen. All right, so we're going to say splitter. This is splitter reasoning. All right, I'm just logging my clip here. And let me just go and watch that real quick to make sure it 3, 2, 1 accurately. Now you might be wondering, in a tabletop exercise here, why we're using a splitter with only 2 devices. Why not just hook them up directly? Well, the reason is that we found the signal was too strong with this short cable. So putting the splitter in the mix weakened the signal a little bit to make it better. So we got the right performance out of this. If you just have like a big long cable in your house, you won't need a splitter at all. But if you are having your cable run to multiple rooms, you likely have splitters in different portions of the home, and you're going to want to make sure that you've got Moca compatible splitters that you're using for those rooms, because these things will operate at frequency ranges that some splitters may filter out. So Moca compatible splitters are definitely the ones to look for, and we'll have a link down below to some that I recommend you try. Okay. Perfect. So now we're going to do a little latency test here just to see what that looks like. We all know what it's going to look like here. And we're just going to run that ping test, and we'll jump back to I'll jump back to camera 3. All right. And Hans says it's great to see something normal going on. Yeah, it is good to have some degree of normalcy in this very troubling time. And I'm hoping by the summer this will all be behind us, because it's been, you know, what's been interesting about this to me is that, you know, my personal lifestyle hasn't changed all that much. The only difference is that the kids are home and not going to school. But I'm doing the same work I've always been doing. And, you know, thankfully, you know, we've got postal workers and UPS drivers and everyone out there still working to make sure things are getting delivered to people. So, you know, I'm hopeful that we'll get back to normal, but I think it's going to be a few months. I really do, unfortunately. And maybe it'll be a ramp up, you know, as we get some of these antibody tests out and people who've had it can start going back to work. We'll see what happens. Boris wants to know, has there been an increase in traffic? Yeah, I'm seeing a bit of an increase in traffic. It's not like the holiday season is for me, though, so I'll have to double check and look at my stats. I think we're still a little too early in this to see a big difference, but I am seeing more clicks out to some of the affiliate links, because I track the number of clicks that go out, and I'm seeing an uptick in that. So I think there's a lot more online shopping going on. But as far as overall watch time, I'm about the same, and I'm not like at holiday levels. So it's not that different. And this is usually a slower time for me, just for YouTubers in general, especially for people that do what I do, because I'm so product focused, and a lot of people aren't usually shopping for technology all the time. I am, of course, but most people aren't, and I'm sure right now most people are not shopping. You know, that's not their first priority. They're getting, you know, the staples that they need. Okay, so let's do a quick one here. And there's a good point made about terminating the end of that splitter. So we will terminate that when we put the third one in, but you're right, that does create some other signal issues. Good enough to get our test done at least, but yeah, we're gonna rectify that by getting the third one connected in a minute, because we will at least be able to do a little bit with the third one. What I want to try with the third one is the security stuff, to show what happens when you put a third one on the network that hasn't joined the security ring here. All right. Tuhin is from Paris, also locked down, I'm sure, at the moment. And Nigel's back from London Heathrow, also on lockdown. You know, the one thing about this situation is, you know, it's a global crisis that we're all responding to the same way. Like, we're experiencing the same. Like, it's not a good thing to be in this. But I think from the standpoint of, you know, the world has like a common enemy right now, and we're all experiencing and dealing with it the same way. And I don't think we've had a global scale crisis like this where we've all been on the same side, if that makes sense. You could look at World War II and a lot of other conflicts that were two groups of powers competing, you know, man-made problem. This one, being biological in nature, is impacting everyone equally. And some countries unequally in a bad way, and you know, we're all kind of in this together, and the global economy is going to be impacted the same way. Okay, so so I'm hoping after, you know, I'm going to do a video on predictions as to what's going to happen next, and I think one of the things there's going to be a lot of advances in medical testing technology after this is all over, for sure. Because I think that's been a large part of the challenge, is that how do you make decisions when you don't have all the information, which is the lack of testing that we had here in the U.S. Big problem. And you know, I'm on my local school board, and typically, you know, the decision to close the school for a public health issue is something that would come from our state government. And because there wasn't testing on the federal side, like there was this whole cascade of challenges. And for the first time, I've been on the Board of Ed for 17 years. For the first time, I felt like we were really on our own to an extent. I'm not feeling as much like that anymore. I think the state's kind of caught up. But this really, I think, caught a lot of people on the federal side off guard. And it's impacted a lot of, I think, a lot of what you're seeing here. Okay. And Zosu says more companies will be working from home now. I'm totally with you. I think, I don't think working from home works for everybody. It works great for me. I'm somebody that works better by myself because I just like to chat with people. And I was never one of those disruptive office chatters, but I do like to do my rounds and just check in on people and chat. And I've been very productive since I started working from home a couple of years ago because I have nobody to chat with. So that's why I go out at certain times of the day just to go find people to talk to. Okay, I'm one of these introverted extroverts, if that makes sense. So I can be introverted, but I also crave human interaction too. It's a weird thing. So yeah, I'm struggling here. So let's see the work. So it's funny. The work is going great, but the human interaction thing is bugging me. And I'm calling all my friends constantly. I think I'm driving them all crazy. Okay. All right. So let me do. Oh, Nathan wants to know, is the market crashing hurting me at all? Yeah, it is definitely. But it's hard to say on the market crashing, like how that impacts you over the long term. So I don't know. I mean, I've lost all of my gains over the last year. Actually, over the last 3.5 years are just wiped out. But I still have what I put in. So it'll be okay. It's going to come back. But, the question is, do you pull your cash out or do you leave it in? And so part of what happened when I was preparing to go solo here was I started putting money away just in case this thing didn't work out. So I've got a reserve in the bank. I've got income from this that still looks like it's still coming in. So and a lot of the revenue from the YouTube channel and the other things that bring revenue to the channel are all like a month or two delayed based on how they do their factoring, a lot of the affiliate stuff too. So I'm okay for the next 2 or 3 months at least, and I've got a reserve after that of money that I had prepared for just in case the business failed. So the business is going to do fine. It's just a matter of whether or not there's any money left in the economy to to keep it going. So, but yeah, I'm going to be okay. And the market will come back. I'm not pulling my money out because that's it. In fact, if anything, I'm going to talk to my advisor. I might start looking at stocks to buy because everything's cheap right now. So if you've got cash, you may want to look at it. Talk to an advisor. I'm not an expert on this stuff, but right now the stocks are cheap or cheaper, and there's an opportunity for people that have cash. So think about that. Okay, back to the video. All right, so the next thing we're going to do here is the latency test. So let's run that, and then we will look at the control panel, and we'll look at having 3 devices connected, and then we'll grab one of my action techs, which is a 2.0 device, and see how it interacts with those. All right, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so the next thing we're going to try out here is latency. Again, we're doing our tabletop exercise here with 2 adapters, and we're going to just do a standard ping test from what, let me start this again. 3, where did we leave the last one off? It was on, okay, so we left the other one on that, so we're going to start here, okay. Actually, I'll start back on me. 3, 2, 1. Now we're going to take a look at latency. In other words, how long does it take for a packet of data to go from one of these devices to the other? And what we're going to do is just a standard ping test here on my Mac. We're going to push it to the other Mac here and see what the latency is. So we're going to initiate that test now. The one thing that you'll notice with Moca connections is that it does add a little bit of latency to the mix versus Ethernet. So we're seeing about 4 milliseconds or so, give or take. That's a couple milliseconds more than you would get again with an Ethernet connection. But if running Ethernet wiring is not feasible, this really isn't bad. But it will add a marginal amount of latency to your network. So for example, if you were gaming on a server, you might be seeing 2 or 3 milliseconds more in latency due to that local latency being introduced by the adapters. But overall, it is very, very minimal here. And again, we've got a lot of bandwidth here to play with too. All right. Yeah, AMD stock has been amazing. You should go and just look at the graph on it. My gosh, it went from like $2 a couple of years ago to where it is now. It's been doing really well. All right. But by the way, don't go nuts in the stock market because I told you to. Like, be careful. Here's the thing with stocks is that it's so electronic now that it's hard to compete as a human being against the computers, which is why they have all those circuit breakers built into the market, because the computers, if they see something going wrong, their AI decides to start selling and you can crash the market super fast. So they have the circuit breakers now that shuts the market down because the computers just could really do a lot of damage pretty quick. And I took a tour of the stock exchange recently, and my gosh, you have those pictures from the 80s of these people screaming at each other and doing the hand signals. It was as quiet as a library there. I couldn't believe it. This is the floor of the New York Stock Exchange because it's all electronic. There's people working on the floor. There's some trading going on, but it's not like you see in the pictures. And those shots of the guys like looking like that, it's just like some guy just doing that because there's nothing going on the floor. It's like it was so bizarre. I was expecting something totally different than what we got. Let me just play this back real quick. Let me know if this looks good. And let's play this real quick here. 3, 2, 1. Now we're going to take a look at latency. In other words, how long does it take for a packet of data to go from one of these devices to the other? And what we're going to do is just a standard ping test here on my Mac. We're going to push it to the other Mac here and see what the latency is. So we're going to initiate that test now. The one thing that you'll notice with Moca connections is that it does add a little bit of latency to the mix versus Ethernet. So we're seeing about 4 milliseconds or so, give or take. That's a couple milliseconds more than you would get again with an Ethernet connection. But if running Ethernet wiring is not feasible, this really isn't bad. But it will add a marginal amount of latency to your network. So for example, if you were gaming on a server, you might be seeing 2 or 3 milliseconds more in latency due to that local latency being introduced by the adapters. But overall, it is very, very minimal here. And again, we've got a lot of bandwidth here to play with too. All right, so I think that'll work on the latency, right? All right. And Russell, yeah, these are about $59 a piece. So not bad. They're less expensive than the other ones. And the only thing we can't test today is the differentiating feature, which is the fact that these can push 2.5 gigabits over the network. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to connect up a third one. And what we're going to do with the third one is the security, and we're also going to show the really cool control panel that they have. And I might actually, before I hook up, let's do the third one, and then I think I'm going to do this. So we're going to hook up the third one just to show the control panel. I'm just trying to think out loud here. This one's connected already. Yeah, so let's show the control panel, and then we will hook up one of the Moca 2.0 adapters. I think that's what we'll do. And then we'll get a good sense as to how it all works. So let's plug this one in now. And this is what I really like about these, is that they have their own control panel. So you can better troubleshoot the network. I don't think the Action Techs have this. And if I'm wrong, let me know in the... And Patrick's getting a consistent 4 milliseconds on his too. That's good to, it's good to hear what other people are experiencing, because that will give me a good sense as to whether or not we're testing things correctly. All right, what I'm doing now is just... All right, we got the third one up. Now, check out this control panel they've got. It's really cool. So let me go back out onto my little Mac here. Oops. I just got to log into the control panel. I have torn this room apart. This is like, you would think this would be a simple project to do, but I had to bring all these extra computers down here. It's just been crazy trying to get all these things to work together, and I keep losing one of. I have like 4 of them. I keep losing one of them. So, but we're getting there. Over on the Amazon chat, DoomQ wants to know, do I have to remove the cable company splitter first to set up these adapters? So you don't need to, and that's going to be a point that we'll make in the final video. So the reason why I'm really harping on the splitter is that my initial tests using what I already had in my house for splitters was not giving me the performance I expected. And my prior generation Moca 2.0 devices worked fine with these existing splitters. These apparently are running at higher frequency ranges than my other ones were running at. And as a result of that, I wasn't getting the speed that we just got on the test we were running. So I would say start with what you got. If you don't see a reason to upgrade the splitters, don't do it. But if you want to get the maximum performance, that gigabit you just saw, like exactly at a gigabit, then you probably want to get some splitters hooked up, or new splitters hooked up. And for some reason, this thing is not letting me in now. GoCoax. Let's see here. So that's my advice. If you're happy with the performance, you're gonna be fine with your existing splitters. So in other words, I was getting about probably 700 or 800 megabits per second with my other splitters. So it seems to me that there's like a frequency range it couldn't hit. And I think that was going on. That was what was going on there. All right, so 254.254. I'm looking at the instruction sheet here, which is a rare thing. And it could be that the one I am on, this is not my handwriting, so I think maybe the guys that lent me the equipment here were leaving notes. That's not my handwriting. So the password is admin, or username is admin, password GoCoax. And I think the one I'm trying to connect to on this Mac is not, they must have changed the passwords. So that might be one of the 3 that came from them. So let me go over to my other one here. This is going to be fun because maybe I've got one that needs a 192.168.254.254. Okay, that one worked. All right, perfect. So let me go over to Moca link rates. Let me show you what I'm looking at here, folks. I'll full screen this one for you so you can see. Actually, really cool stuff. So you get this nice little web control panel. Again, I don't think the Action Techs have this. The Action Tech router does. So we've got the Moca version, the network Moca version. You have all these stats as to what you're getting. And we've had no bad stuff going on here. Here's the really cool part. If you jump into link rate, it'll show you what each connected device is getting. And so if you wanted to see what your connection rate was, for example, from device 0 to device 2, you can see here. Now what's interesting is that there's like a gigabit loss to overhead or something, because it's giving me, these are bits per second, and they're rating these at 2.5 gigabits per second each, and this is like gigabit higher than that, or close to it. So there's probably some overhead involved with it here. But if we again go from 0 to 1 or 2, they've got that Moca 2.5 connection. And what we're going to do in a few minutes is connect up one of the Action Tech adapters, and you'll see that one will be at a different rate. So the way these work, and this is how they explained it to me, is that if you have older Moca 2.0 or 1.0 adapters on the network, the connection between, or the communication between the 2 devices will run at the slower speed. So if you're going from 2.5 to 2.0, it obviously will communicate at a 2.0 speed. But these 2 here would continue to communicate at the full speed. And we'll be able to illustrate that. So I just lost something there. We'll be able to illustrate that through the chart here that comes up. So that will work. And I just lost my dongle here. Excuse me, everybody. I got to fish out a dongle from the floor. Oh. So yeah, so that's how that works. All right, let me plug this back in here. Okay. Let's make sure that connection comes back up here. There we go. So I think that's pretty cool. And then there's the security settings, and this is what we're going to have to play with, because what this does, and according to the instructions here to set up the security, let me show you this. And I'm trying to figure out the way to do this in the most consumer-friendly way. So they want you to have only one of them on the network initially. And then they want you to set the DEXT band security setting and do a password. You save the configuration and then reboot. After the device boots up, the Moca LED will turn blue solid, turn on the second device. You have to press the MPS button on 2 of the devices. So I'm guessing if you're in different parts of the house, maybe you have to do, somebody else will have to push it with you, or maybe you just push it once, I don't know. But they'll connect up that way. And so that's how that works. All right, so let's go. So Doom Q, I have a couple of splitters. If Doom's on the Amazon chat. So if you look down on the product carousel, there are a couple of splitters that I've got there that would work fine with this setup, the BAMFs. And it looks like from the discussion on the YouTube chat that these are splitters that people who've bought these are using. So you can check those out. Yeah, hopefully that helps answer your question there, Doom. Thank you for asking. We've got some questions here. Let's see. Win32 wants to know if it's an Apple Watch. Yep, it's an Apple Watch. I've been wearing Apple Watches since they came out, and I really like it. It's good for tracking my fitness because you can really get caught up in the day down here in the basement, and it's good to get out and walk, and the watch is a good way to know where you're at. Commodore 256 wants to know, is this like a home DOCSIS adapter? It kind of is like that, I guess. I mean, it's working over the same cabling, and we've done a lot of content on Moca in the past, and it's a great network extender. That's the real advantage. So if you have cable TV wiring but not Ethernet, it can be a very good alternative to that. All right, so now we're going to jump over to the control panel. I think I need to tease the big test, and then, which we're not going to do today because we need the splitter, and then I'm going to go into the control panel, and we're going to try the security, and then we have to demo. I'm just trying to think of the right process here. We're going to we'll do the link rates first, and then we're going to go into the security after that. That's how we're going to do it. So let me just everyone's going to record a teaser for the bandwidth test. So let me do that. Again, we're not going to do that today. And we go 3, 2, 1. All right, next we need to test and see if we can get the full 2.5 gigabits or close to it that they're advertising with these boxes. So again, you can't get it out of the Ethernet because it's only gigabit out of the Ethernet here, but the connection between these boxes, the backbone, if you will, is running at a faster 2.5 gigabits per second. So what we're going to do now is get 4 of these hooked up, and we're going to have both of these Macs pushing data to other computers on the network. And if it's getting the speeds that we hope it's going to be getting, we should see both of these computers communicating. I'm going to start that again. I'm just like talking. My words were not coming out properly. Because part of the issue here too is that I may not be wearing the same thing on Thursday when the splitter comes, and my hair is going to be longer because it's going to be another 4 or 5 days before it arrives, or a week. So we're going to basically do all of the bandwidth testing just as B-roll and a voiceover. 3, 2, 1. So now we need to 3, 2, 1. So now we need to test at 3, 2, 1. So now we need to see if we're getting the 2.5 gigabits of backbone data that they're advertising on these. And it's hard to do this with just 2. So we're going to hook up another 2 for a total of 4. And we're going to have both of these laptops transmit data over to another computer on our little Moca network here. And if we are getting the larger backbone, we shouldn't see much of a speed difference between having one of these network tests running like we were doing a few minutes ago and a second one, because there should be enough bandwidth to get two gigabit. See, it gets complicated. It gets complicated trying to explain this stuff. And Commodore makes some good points about grounding. I did an interview, by the way, with the president of the Moca Alliance, and I should probably do another disclaimer here that the company that designs, or the association that designs the standard for Moca that all these other companies follow in manufacturing, they have been a sponsor here on the channel in the past. We've done a lot of content, both sponsored and unsponsored, on this technology. They're not sponsoring this video, by the way, but I had a great interview with the president of the association where we talked a lot about the signal issues that people should be aware of and some of the things that could trip up the connection. And it is a lot trickier than Ethernet, for sure. So it has its pitfalls, but when you've got a good home coax network, it's easier and cheaper than having the electrician come out and run twisted pair, for sure. Okay. Let me do a quick thing here. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we saw how fast things were in between two different clients here, but now we want to see what the backbone speed really is. So remember, these are being advertised as 2.5 gigabit adapters, but we can only get a gigabit out of each one individually. So to test this, we're going to bring another 2 adapters on board, and we're going to have both computers run that network test we just ran simultaneously. And if everything is working correctly, we shouldn't see much of a speed drop after we get the second computer online and transmitting. So let's get all that hooked up, and we'll run that test and see what happens. Okay, so now I am going to just log that clip, and we can't do that test today, so we're going to see what happens later. So we'll do another live stream, a second one on this topic, and we'll test that latency out, or that speed out. So T's for dual network test. All right, now we are going to do the control panel now. So there's that, and hopefully it'll all work out, because I have no idea what it's going to do, but we'll find out. Okay. So the DOS has 2 of these adapters, but gets 350 megabits per second, definitely related to coax quality and perhaps a splitter in the attic. Yeah, I think that's probably what you're dealing with there, is splitters, signal strength, signal quality. That's often been the issue. And from what I'm seeing with these, they are more sensitive than the Action Techs were. And I don't know if it's the nature of the standard it's running on or if it's the adapters themselves, because my Action Techs did better in the house achieving gigabit speeds than these did. And I have crappy wiring and splitters and everything. So I think that might be the issue, because when we've got them connected with a proper splitter, we were getting the performance that I expected out of it. And with a non-proper splitter, just the standard gigahertz splitter, I was seeing that, you know, with the same wires, same computers, same network adapters and everything, we were not getting the performance that we got a little bit earlier. So that is why I think the splitter is needed to really test this properly. So we're going to wait for that other one to come in. The one I have hooked up here, the 2-way splitter, this is a Moca splitter, so that's why it was working better on that test with 2. But now we've got 3 connected. Okay. Patrick Chang is here from Philly. Welcome. Yeah, this is what's funny is that once we get into like hour 2 is when YouTube starts letting people know that I'm doing this. It's really weird how this works. So what typically happens is that by the time I'm ready to quit, we've got the most number of viewers coming in, and more are coming in as we're wrapping up. And I see that also with my own creators that I like to watch, is that I'll say, oh, so-and-so's live, and I'll pop in and they're just wrapping up because of however this algorithm works. So the live algorithm still needs a little bit of work. Okay, so we're going to go over to camera 5, and we're going to look at the control panel. 3, 2, 1. All right, so now we're going to get into some of the, I guess it is kind of nerdy. I was going to say we're getting into the more of the nerdy section of the video, but I think we really kind of crossed that path already. So we'll see what happens here. All right, 3, 2, 1. Now, one thing I really like about these adapters is that they have a web-based control panel that you can log into to see how they are performing. And we're going to look at a couple of things here. The first, though, is the device status page, which gives you an idea as to how your particular device is working. Now, this is the current status of the device that this computer is plugged into physically. It looks as though you can't access all of them at the same time. So you have to go to the computer or device that's directly connected to it and then log into its address here, which is 192.168.254.254. So you're going to have to go from device to device to really troubleshoot it. But so far it's been working. Actually, you know what? I bet you that's not the case, because I think there's a way that you can change the, Oh, IP mode of and telnet. There's a telnet server. How about that? That's pretty cool. So I'm incorrect about that. So you can actually go in and change that. So let's start again. 3, 2, 1. Now, one of the things that I really like about these adapters is that they have a really cool web-based control panel that you can log into to troubleshoot things. And by default, the IP address is what you see here on screen, but you can change this and then log into all of them from wherever you are in your home or VPN if you're able to call in remotely. So it's pretty cool to be able to go in and just troubleshoot each one individually if you need to. This is the device status page. You also get a link rate page that will give you a whole picture of your Moca network. So right now I've got 3 devices connected, and as you can see here, we've got all 3 running on Moca 2.5. And these are the raw bit rates that each device can achieve, and then what the speeds will be between them. So for example, if I wanted to see how fast my connection from device 0 to device 2 might be, you can see that it's 3,500 megabits per second here. But this does not account for all the network overhead that you'll have passing your data back and forth. So that's why they're rating these at a lower 2.5 gigabits per second. But this is a great way to get an idea as to the health of your network. Now, you might be wondering what happens if we hook up a Moca 2.0 device to this network. Will that slow everybody down? Well, let's hook one up and see what happens. I think that works. What do you think? I think that works. All right. Commodore says, try starting with bumper intermission for a few. You know who does that? Smoke Monster does that a lot, and that really does work well. He does like the chip tunes to kind of get everybody tuned in, and then he pops on like a half hour into the chip tunes. That's not a bad idea. I might try to do that. All right, so let's look at the web control panel, and let's take a look at that. And then we got to do the security part. So I'm just going to play this back real quick. 3, 2, 1. Now, one of the things that I really like about these adapters is that they have a really cool web-based control panel that you can log into to troubleshoot things. And by default, the IP address is what you see here on screen, but you can change this and then log into all of them from wherever you are in your home or VPN if you're able to call in remotely. So it's pretty cool to be able to go in and just troubleshoot each one individually if you need to. This is the device status page. You also get a link rate page that will give you a whole picture of your Moca network. So right now I've got 3 devices connected, and as you can see here, we've got all 3 running on Moca 2.5. And these are the raw bit rates that each device can achieve, and then what the speeds will be between them. So for example, if I wanted to see how fast my connection from device 0 to device 2 might be, you can see that it's 3,500 megabits per second here. But this does not account for all the network overhead that you'll have passing your data back and forth. So that's why they're rating these at a lower 2.5 gigabits per second. But this is a great way to get an idea as to the health of your network. Now, you might be wondering what happens if we hook up a Moca 2.0 device to this network. Will that slow everybody down? Well, let's hook one up and see what happens. All right. Ooh. So I'm going to go pull one of my Moca 2.0 adapters out of the closet, and we'll see what happens with that one. So you got to think about all these different things that people want to see. And I've got one right here. Okay. So here is the Action Tech. This is an Action Tech Moca 2.0 adapter. And I think what I'll do is I'll swap out the other one here. So let's disconnect this guy. Unplug that one. And then we'll just plug this one in. Okay. And Andre's enjoying the stream so far. Good. I'm glad you're enjoying it. It's good to know that you all enjoy watching me tinker with stuff and try to figure out how to make it work. It's one of the challenging things with what I do is that I'm trying to make this understandable to basic consumers while still giving, those of you who have a real techie, really a strong technical know-how and interest, being able to deliver what you're looking for as well. So it is a challenge to be able to do all those things. Okay, so we disconnected that one, and let's plug in the 2.0. So now we're going to hook this Action Tech one up. And we should see, yes, look at that, it came up like super quick. And I'm just going to refresh the control panel page here. So let's go back. Now, I probably, watch this, folks, I probably disconnected the one that I was using. I sure did. Okay, so now we've got the issue of this one having some password that they set that I don't know. So we're going to have to go get another one and plug that in. Okay, give me 1 second here. Maybe they made it simple. All right, so we're not going to be able to use this one at all. Okay, so we're going to take this one out of circulation here. And we still have the third one down there, so we're going to have that available to us. Let's pull this one out. And I'm just trying to keep all the power adapters together here. And we're going to plug this one in. And then we're going to plug in the Moca and reconnect the Ethernet. Now here's something interesting. When I just plugged this one back in, this one lost its connection. So I wonder if it resets the whole thing and renegotiates. Let's see what happens, because the Mocas now are all dark. There it goes, back on. Okay. So now let's see what. All right, so that one's totally out. So let me go back to this one here. Okay, good. All right, so we're back in. So now, if I go here, yeah, I think you'd have to go in, so you probably have to configure, so Anthony makes a good point, you'd probably have IP address conflicts. So I think what you probably have to do is go into each of them individually initially to set the IP address, and then after that you're probably fine. But I've been using these, I haven't been getting IP conflicts, so it must be a different link layer or something, because it hasn't been conflicting on the network here. All right, so let's go to our link rates. So now you see device 0 is a Moca. Oh, okay, no, we're good. Yep, so device 0 is a Moca 2.0. So you can see 1 to 0 is 1340, but 1 to 2 is 3656. So that's cool. And I wonder, for the heck of it, it doesn't really matter because it's going to work the same, I'm sure, but let's see. While we're doing this, why don't we push another little speed test there and see what happens. So this is going from a Moca 2.5 to a 2.0. And yeah, it's doing about the same. It's a little less, but now we're back up. And yeah, that's about what I usually expect out of these things. Yeah. So that's working fine. And so that's going from the GoCoax to the Action Tech. Just run it again. Maybe the Ethernet's got to settle down a little bit. Yeah, so it's running about the same. So the good news is you can interoperate your 2.0 and 3 and 2.5s. All right, so let's see how we last left that other clip. Okay, so we ended on that, on me. Okay, so there we go. Okay. So I think I'll go here, and then we'll go to to there, and then we'll run the test. I think is how we'll do it. That'll work. Okay. So here we go. We're about almost 2 hours into this. I knew this was going to take a while. Partly because we found some things along the way. So this is how this works, is that a lot of times I'll be like, oh, I can do this one super quick. And then it's like, oh, wait a second. What about this? What about that? And before you know it, you're 3 or 4 hours into something. So, okay. So now we're going to look at interoperability. I'm not even going to say the word. I can't say it. So I'm just going to say what happens. Okay. Let me see how I ended the last clip. Work. Will that slow everybody down? Well, let's hook one up and see what happens. Okay. Hook up a Moca 2.0 device to this network. Will that slow everybody down? Well, let's hook one up and see what happens. All right, good. Okay. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. All right, so we took out one of our Action Tech devices. This is another Moca-compatible device. Works very much the same way that the ones we're reviewing today work, but this is based on the older Moca 2.0 standard that runs at 1 gigabit per second. And we've got that now on our Moca network. Let's take a look at that control panel now and see what we've got. So now you can see that on our Moca network, we have one Moca 2.0 device here in position 0, and then 2 of our Moca 2.5 devices on our little network here. So you'll look at number 1 here. You'll see that 1 is connecting to 0 at this data rate, but 1 is connecting to 2 at this data rate because both 1 and 2 are Moca 2.5 adapters, whereas Moca 0 is running at Moca 2.0 speeds. But the good news is that if we run a quick speed test here, as you'll see that we're getting pretty much the same performance that we had before. We're able to push about a gigabit of data here without issues from the Moca 2.0 GoCoax device to the Action Tech device. And even though these are made by 2 different manufacturers, they're both following the Moca standard, so you're going to get complete compatibility if you've got an older Moca device on your network. It just won't run as fast as these new ones will when talking to each other. All right, I think that worked. And now we're going to do the security part. And I got to figure out how to make that work, because we have to demonstrate connecting the 2 up. All right, so this is going to be Moca 2.0 interoperability. Okay. And we'll go from there. And let's take a look at the 3, 2, 1. All right, so we took out one of our Action Tech devices. This is another Moca-compatible device. Works very much the same way that the ones we're reviewing today work, but this is based on the older Moca 2.0 standard that runs at 1 gigabit per second. And we've got that now on our Moca network. Let's take a look at that control panel now and see what we've got. So now you can see that on our Moca network, we have one Moca 2.0 device here in position 0, and then 2 of our Moca 2.5 devices on our little network here. So you'll look at number 1 here. You'll see that 1 is connecting to 0 at this data rate, but 1 is connecting to 2 at this data rate because both 1 and 2 are Moca 2.5 adapters, whereas Moca 0 is running at Moca 2.0 speeds. But the good news is that if we run a quick speed test here, as you'll see that we're getting pretty much the same performance that we had before. We're able to push about a gigabit of data here without issues from the Moca 2.0 GoCoax device to the ActionTech device. And even though these are made by two different manufacturers, they're both following the Moca standard, so you're going to get complete compatibility if you've got an older Moca device on your network. It just won't run as fast as these new ones will when talking to each other. That works. And yeah, this one's going to be more techy than I wanted it to be, but I think it has to be. So I think I got to figure out how I'm going to work this out. Because part of what my thinking here is that my assumption is that my viewers know what Moca is, but a lot of people don't and might be looking at these because these are a lot less expensive than the ActionTech ones are. The DOS brings up a good point that the Moca 2.5 standard adds MPS, which means that we can get the security working with a button push. And I'm not sure if these ActionTechs have any security settings on them. So I would love to know if they do from some of the experts in the chat room. Now, let me show you, though, the different security options you have, because there's more than one security setting. So my guess here is that, let me show you what the security screen looks like. So you have these different band settings, and I'm assuming that low and high are probably Moca 1 and 2, and this extended one is Moca 3, I'm guessing? I don't know. So that's what I need your help with on that. And I don't even know how to do it on the ActionTech. All right, so what we're going to do to set this up is we're going to remove the ActionTech from the network briefly. And we're going to rely now, and this is where it's going to get tricky because, yeah, so this one that is already connected, we're going to leave on there. And then we're going to connect this one. So what I want to demonstrate is what happens if somebody like goes and splices your cable outside and tries to hook one of these things up when the security is enabled. So we're going to enable the security, and then we're going to see what happens if a third party gets in the mix. So in the interim here, we're going to disconnect the ActionTech device. And then we'll bring in the third one in a minute. So bear with me for 1 second here, and we'll get that going real quick. There's lots of stuff to always test on here. Okay, so now, that one's hooked up already, so I'm going to take the Ethernet here and plug it into the one that is hooked up, because these two do not have the password problem. But the problem is that this one needs to be disconnected, and I have to show the button being pushed. And I need to maybe get the cable closer, so let me do that real quick. And we're going to have to get in a little tighter on these guys and gals, because let's do camera 4 here, because these lights are going to, yeah, that'll work. Okay, so we're going to disconnect power from this one, and we're going to plug the cable in here. So now I should only have one left on the network to mess around with. Okay. Okay, so Bart says a question while I'm setting this stuff up I can answer. Why is this better than Powerline? Because it works better. That's the big reason. Powerline works okay, but I've never been able, so for example, I looked at a bunch of Powerline adapters, and I could never get them even remotely close to like the gigabit or 500 megabit speeds they were offering. These things, the Moca adapters, and I've tested 2 different brands now. I've done a bunch on the ActionTech, and this is the first I've really tried the GoCoax stuff. They deliver you essentially Ethernet performance without the Ethernet, at least without the Ethernet interconnection. And that's been I mean, it's amazing how good it works. And I use it in the house all the time because I've got cable jacks all over my house, but not a lot of Ethernet that was run. If I had built this house, I would have totally done Ethernet everywhere. Okay, so we're going to follow the instructions here for the MPS button. And we're going to set up an encrypted network. And we're going to see if the speed's any different. And Boris, yes, I have a whole video on power line versus, so if you want, you know what I'll do here, folks? I will put in on my video description right now, and I'll put a little, if you go to Lon.TV/MOCA, you can see every video I've done on Moca. And I forgot how I came across it. I think what happened in the very early days of the channel, I did a video on power line adapters that I bought. And they weren't working. So my objective at the time was we had the HD home run, and I was trying to get one of my rooms to work with it. And Wi-Fi wasn't good enough, and I didn't have Ethernet running to that room. And so I initially tried a power line adapter, which also could not sustain a reliable network connection. So it was good for basic internet stuff, and I was impressed that it worked even at all, but it wasn't good enough for pulling in over-the-air TV content. So that's when I tried the Moca, and the Moca worked. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing how well it works. Now, Lacquerai in the chat has got Cat 6 all over his house, and I'm assuming you're male, but it could be female, so sorry if I got your thing wrong there, but Lacquerai's got Cat 6 all over the house, and that's ideal. So if you're building a house, just put Ethernet in every room. What I did in this room is every wall in this room has 4 home runs to my equipment closet there. So I've got every spot. It's got 4 connections for a couple of reasons. One is that we always are hooking things up to the network here, but also because I do a lot of NDI video, which really works much better over Ethernet. And we're always obviously testing things too. So if you can, when you're building, just run the Cat 6. Run it everywhere. Okay. Yeah, and that's one of the challenges with, this is I think the biggest challenge with Moca, is that it's, oops, oh, I just lost my computer. Hang on a second, everybody. This was a disaster that just happened. So my little Surface tablet here, which I've been using to monitor the chat, just went over. And then, it still works, no cracked screens or anything. And then I lost the dongle for the Mac in the process there. Bear with me, folks. I got to just reconnect everything here. I have a very small table in which I work on. And when I just have one thing on the table, it's fine. But when I have 5 things, it gets complicated. Like I said, I've been spending a lot of time just trying to plan out how this video is going to work, because you want to have everything, you want to be able to show something to the viewer so that they know what they're looking at. So if I'm showing, hey, we're going to hook up 4 of these things, they should all be there in the same place so that, you know what I mean? Like, so you can visually show that they're all here. So that's where this got complicated. So I have a table set up over there. I was going to have like a row of computers that we were going to push data back and forth on. And then I'm like, well, what's the point of that if I could just have 2 on the desk here and not have to keep running back and forth to start tests and everything. So that was the tricky part. Okay. So we're back in business here, and let me see where we last left the clip before. It was on the 2 up there. Okay. So we're going to start back on me, and we're going to talk about the MPS button here and how to set that up. And I'm assuming that this is a new feature of the CJ says, I hate when I lose my dongles. Yeah, the problem with USB-C, as great as it is that they're hard to keep track of. Okay. And that's also, by the way, one of the hard parts about doing a very involved project like this live, because people tune in at different times. And the YouTube algorithm will let you know, like will bring you in at different points in time. So it's hard to, okay, so maybe we'll start off on here. Yeah, we'll start here actually. 3, 2, 1. Now these GoCoax devices have a new security feature involving this button here called MPS. And what this lets you do is set up an encrypted network between specific devices so that somebody can't just come in and splice your cable wiring and then begin snooping on your communications. What will happen here is these boxes will encrypt the traffic going back and forth to each other. So if somebody did get on your network, they would just see a bunch of gibberish. Now, there are a couple of steps to getting this to work. And according to the instructions, what you have to do is pull all of your GoCoax Moca devices here off the network and just have one plugged in. You then have to go back to that configuration screen here and go over to security settings. And what you have to do is set a password here on security enabled. And I'm just going to call it Lon.TV. This is not a very secure password. You're going to want to use something much more secure than that. And click Save. But once we set it up for this DEXT band here, all it's going to require is a button push every time we add an additional device to the network. So I'm going to click Save here. And it looks like I need let me start again. I need a longer password. So let's go back and start that take again, and we'll, I think what I'll do is just refresh this page and kind of start fresh here. So we'll just set up a really lousy password, but I think it'll help in explaining this to folks. JFC has a question that I actually had to find out the hard way about. So he's got one of these, by the way, one of these, I know I'm going off topic here, but it was a question that I can answer. So he has one of these Logitech K400 keyboards, which, by the way, best deal ever. I've got a bunch of these. They're like $24 or something. So keyboard and trackpad integrated. This is what I control my TriCaster with. I've got one upstairs that I use with my PC, my game room PC that hooks up to the TV. And it requires one of those USB adapters for it to communicate. So if you lose the USB adapter, you can buy another one. And I think they cost like about half the price of the keyboard, but if you lose it, you can get another one. You just have to have a Windows PC, I think, to pair them back up again. What's nice about these, though, is that this is the battery lid, and you can store the unifying adapter in the lid. So if you don't always leave it plugged in, you can just keep it in there. And go that way. And the batteries on these things last forever. So it runs on AA's. And I've been running I was running the same set for like 3.5, 4 years. Like crazy long battery life on this. Good stuff. There you go. Oh, I need to use digits, the DOS says. All right, so we'll just, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to leave the digits that are in there just to make it simple. All right, so let's do back on this shot here. Yeah, so I'll just use the that thing there. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Now another feature that's 3, 2, 1. Now these GoCoax devices have a security feature involving this MPS button, and what this allows you to do is very easily add encryption to your Moca network, so that way if somebody were to come in and try to splice your cable wiring, they couldn't get into the rest of your network. So what it requires, though, is that you have to take all of the devices off the network to configure it, except one. And we're going to be configuring this one here while all the other ones are off. And what you have to do first is go into their control panel, which I'll pull up here on screen. If you go over to the security settings right here, and select the DEXT band. Oops, let me wait for it to refresh here. Select the DEXT band and then put in a password. I'm going to leave the default password in here, but you're definitely going to want to change this password to something unique to you. We're going to click Save here, and then we're going to reboot the unit. And once we do that, the device will then prompt us a little bit differently here. We're going to see a blue light on Moca when it comes back up again. And then what we're going to do is add a second device to the network, and all we'll have to do moving forward is just push this MPS button to pair them up. So let me get that other device connected, and we'll see how the rest of this pairing goes. I'm going to do that again. I didn't like the way that worked. Let's try this one more time. I don't even know if it rebooted or not. Oh, yeah, it's giving me a thing there. Let me do this one more time. I didn't like the way that was flowing. I like to make these things right. So we're not in any rush. I'm certainly not going anywhere for the next 3 months. All right. 3, 2, 1. Now these 3, 2, 1. Now these GoCoax devices have a security feature involving this MPS button. So what you can do is set up an encrypted network between paired GoCoax devices so that if somebody were to come by your house and maybe try to split your cable wiring outside the house, they won't be able to access the network because all of the traffic is encrypted between these GoCoax devices that have paired with each other. Now to set this up, you have to go into that web control panel we were just looking at, go over to the security settings, and what you want to do is check off the box here next to DEXT, and then click Save, and then you need to reboot the device. Now you have to make sure that all of your other devices are off the network first when you do this, because each one has to be paired individually. But the good news is it just requires a button push after you set up the first one like we just did here. So I'm going to click OK and reboot the device. I'm going to hook up a second one now, and let's see if we can get them connected with this new encryption that we just set up. I can probably live with that. Let's see how that came out. And there it goes. Okay, so now the Moca light is blue now, which is what we want. And we're going to say 109 security setup. Okay. And let's play that back. 3, 2, 1. Now these GoCoax devices have a security feature involving this MPS button. So what you can do is set up an encrypted network between paired GoCoax devices so that if somebody were to come by your house and maybe try to split your cable wiring outside the house, they won't be able to access the network because all of the traffic is encrypted between these GoCoax devices that have paired with each other. Now to set this up, you have to go into that web control panel we were just looking at, go over to the security settings, and what you want to do is check off the box here next to DEXT, and then click Save, and then you need to reboot the device. Now you have to make sure that all of your other devices are off the network first when you do this, because each one has to be paired individually. But the good news is it just requires a button push after you set up the first one like we just did here. So I'm going to click OK and reboot the device. I'm going to hook up a second one now, and let's see if we can get them connected with this new encryption that we just set up. All right, so we need to shoot that again, and the reason is that I didn't tell people to change the password. So let's try that one more time. Okay, one more time. And actually, I got to turn this off and reboot it again because the light is blue, as you can see, and it won't be blue when you first start that process. So let's reboot again, and that should turn the light off. So B. Tabalba is in Illinois, and it looks like they implemented a stay-at-home order there starting tomorrow. And he, like me, is inside most of the time as well. Yeah, I hope we can just beat this thing so the world can get back to normal, because this is a very damaging situation economically. All right, one more time on this take, and then we'll be ready to try this out. And I'm just reading the instructions here. Okay. Three, two, one. Now there's a 3, 2, 1. Now there's a security feature built into these 3, 2, 1. Now there's a security feature built into these GoCoax devices involving this MPS button here. This will allow for very quick and easy encryption of your Moca network. And that way, if somebody were to find a way to maybe split your cable wire from the outside, they won't be able to get into your network traffic even if they connect a device. This MPS encryption basically requires all of these. It's not good. So it's not really MPS encryption, it's just a button. One more time. 3, 2, 1. Now, one other thing to look at on these GoCoax devices is this MPS button, which allows for a relatively easy way to encrypt your network traffic. So what could happen is that somebody could maybe drive up to your house, grab your cable wire on the outside of the home, connect up another Moca device, and suddenly have access to the Moca traffic on your network. If you encrypt the traffic, only the devices that have paired with each other will be able to communicate because they have encrypted the device. Shoot, one more time. Sorry, everybody. I'm just running out of steam, so my ability to deliver words properly and explain things is starting to wane a bit here. Let me try this one more time. 3, 2, 1. Now, these GoCoax devices have an MPS button on the top that allow for easy encryption between all of the different devices you've connected on your Moca network. And this is a new feature, I believe, in Moca 2.5. And when you set this up, what happens is that nobody could just walk into your home or connect to the outside with a Moca adapter and get access to your network. This requires that all of your Moca devices pair with each other. And once they're paired, all of the traffic between them is encrypted. Now, to set this up, you do have to log into the control panel on one of the devices to start, and they recommend taking all of the other devices off the network while you're in the process of configuring this. So let's go over to the web-based control panel here, and if you click on security settings, you'll see an option here once it loads up to enable this encryption across your network. So if you go over here to the DEXT band and click on security enabled, and then add in a password of your own here. You can click save, which I'm going to do now just with the default password because we're just demoing here, and then reboot. What will happen is that you'll now have an encrypted network ready to go on your device. And once this one comes back up again, the Moca light here will light up blue. And all we'll need to do is just push this button on this device and one that we want to pair with it to get the encryption sent or configured with the other GoCoax devices on the network. And that's what we're going to do right now, is connect a second device and see how this encryption works and what kind of performance impact it might have. I think that worked better. I think that one was better. So JFC says, yeah, there's a lot of effort that goes into these things. And I used to not have the time to do as many of these takes because I was working. I would be doing this stuff after I was working all day long. Or I would wait for the weekend to do some of these longer ones. Now I've got my weekends back since I've been full-time on this. But yeah, I really, what happens too is the more you do this and the more that you look at comments that you get from viewers, the better ideas to how you know when you're rolling off the tracks a bit. And now having all of you watching me do this is really helpful because you're seeing stuff before the viewers see it, and I'm able to catch things ahead of time. So like, for example, the question earlier about the splitter. Why is there a splitter being used? I didn't explain that initially in the first take, so we added that, right? That's a good example of that. 3, 2, 1. Now, these GoCoax devices have an MPS button on the top that allow for easy encryption between all of the different devices you've connected on your Moca network. And this is a new feature, I believe, in Moca 2.5. And when you set this up, what happens is that nobody could just walk into your home or connect to the outside with a Moca adapter and get access to your network. This requires that all of your Moca devices pair with each other, and once they're paired, all of the traffic between them is encrypted. Now, to set this up, you do have to log into the control panel on one of the devices to start, and they recommend taking all of the other devices off the network while you're in the process of configuring this. So let's go over to the web-based control panel here, and if you click on security settings, you'll see an option here once it loads up to enable this encryption across your network. So if you go over here to the DEXT band and click on security enabled, and then add in a password of your own here, you can click save, which I'm going to do now just with the default password because we're just demoing here, and then reboot. What will happen is that you'll now have an encrypted network ready to go on your device. And once this one comes back up again, the Moca light here will light up blue. And all we'll need to do is just push this button on this device and one that we want to pair with it to get the encryption sent or configured with the other GoCoax devices on the network. And that's what we're going to do right now, is connect a second device and see how this encryption works and what kind of performance impact it might have. Okay. Sorry, I'm echoing. All right, let's give this a shot here. Sal's wondering about how my channel growth is. He hasn't seen a big subscription increase in a while. Mine's steady. It's just, I never have a huge month of subscriber growth, but I look, most of my traffic is from search and suggestion, so I just kind of look for that as my performance bearing. Am I still hitting the view count? Is my watch time going up? And if I'm getting that, I'm pretty satisfied with things. There's been some really good content, by the way, if you're curious. The YouTube Creator Insider channel, it's run by YouTube people. It's really good. And they've been doing some really good stuff lately on understanding the supply and demand side of content, because it is very much a commodity thing. And this is why I review this kind of stuff, because we're not seeing a lot of people reviewing GoCoax adapters out there. So you got to look for areas where you can maybe find a little bit of a niche and offer something new. Okay, so we're going to come back on the overhead shot here. I love my overhead rig, by the way. I'm so happy with it. All right, so let me start this off again. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we've got the original adapter here. 3, 2, 1. All right, so we have the first adapter here configured in the encrypted mode here. You can see that blue light up there. Now, the second adapter is on the Moca network, but it doesn't have a connection because the other one is encrypted. So what we're going to do here is hit the MPS button until that Moca light starts flashing. I think that's how it works. Let me look at the instructions again. After the second device boot, press the MPS button on 2 devices. Wait for the Moca LED. Okay, so I guess I just have to push it. All right. You have to push the button on both devices. Does that mean wait for the Moca LED to be green-blue? Oh. So you got to push both at the same time? What kills me is I hate to maybe that's what you have to do. Let's take a look here. I got to be able to show both of those lights lighting up. Yeah, so it looks like it's not just a button push. You got to hold it down on both of them. Interesting. So you probably want to have them close to each other. So let me do that now. I'm making kind of an assumption here. I don't know if that's the case, but I know a button push isn't enough, so I'm assuming that you've got to hold it down on both. I'm just going to push it down on this one and see what happens. Yeah, so nothing's happening on that one. So I think you got to hold it down on both of them. So I was looking to see if maybe that would start blinking or something. Oh! And now it's connected. Shoot. I got to redo it now. All right, so let me just redo the security. So I would bet you if we go over to if we go to security on the other one now. Okay, so the good news is that I don't think I had to push it. Let me go save this and reboot it real quick. And let's reboot. It's a little unclear exactly what the process is, because if it's just a matter of pushing the button on the other one, that's not going to do much good for us, is it? So let's wait for that thing to reboot real quick, and we'll try this again. Good news is it's easy to reset. So if I have to do another take, it shouldn't be hard to do. So, all right, so I haven't pushed this button at all now. So let's just push. I'm just going to hold it down and see what happens. Okay, so I think if you push the button, see the problem is you don't get an indicator as to what is happening here. 3D Mark asked a very good question. Why Action Tech is not selling their Moca 2.5 to consumers? I have no idea. They should be, because they make good products, and I'm surprised that they didn't. Because I mean, they've been out for a while now. I think it's been like a year or more that I was hearing about the 2.5, but it's only available to providers and not to others. All right, so let's try this and see if this works this way. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so we've got the first adapter here configured for encryption. You can see that the light here is blue. The second adapter I just brought into the mix is plugged in and on the Moca network, but it's not connected to Moca, as you can see here, because this one is encrypted and it won't talk to it until it is paired up. Now, to get them to pair, all I have to do is push the button on the master device here and then hold it down on this one until that blue light turns blue. And I think it takes a second or two for it to, there it goes, to come up. And now we've got both of them on the network. I want to do that a little bit more eloquently. It looks like it's just a push and a push. So that's pretty easy. Because the instructions were leading me to believe that you had to hold down the button on both, but it looks like you just push one here and then run to the other one and push it again. The problem, though, is you don't get any kind of light that lights up to let you know that something's happening. So let me reboot this one more time, and then we should see it show up on the network. And the big question would be whether or not we see a performance degradation. But what's nice is that it doesn't connect itself to a Moca network unless it has the encryption working, so that's pretty cool. Now I'm guessing, though, the problem with this is that if you don't have a Moca 2.5 adapter, like if you have a bunch of, it may be harder to mix and match different levels of Moca together. I think is going to be one of the challenges. Okay. All right, let's try this one more time. All right, one more time here. 3, 2, 1. All right, so this 3, 2, 1. All right, so this adapter with the blue light was the one we just configured with encryption. This one below is one that we plugged into the network, and as you can see, the Moca light is not lit up, even though it's connected with that wire. 3, 2, 1. All right, so we've got the original one that we just set up here with the encryption, and as you can see, its Moca light is blue. Now we plugged in this second adapter to the network with the coax cable, and normally if we didn't have encryption going, this one would just pop up on the network and the Moca light would light up. But right now the Moca light is off because we have encryption established, and this one needs to pair up with this one. So what we're going to do here is just push the button on the master here once, and then go over to the secondary device and hold it down. And in a second or two, that Moca light is going to light up blue, and we'll now have added this adapter to the rest of the network. And it really is just a button push to get them going. Sometimes you might have to hold it down a little bit longer. The instructions might lead you to believe that you have to hold the button down on both ends, but I'm finding that's not the case. All you have to do is just push the button here once to begin the pairing, and then it will apparently not work. Isn't that funny? It was working before, didn't work now. All right, let's try this again. I think maybe there's a length of time, perhaps. I'm just looking here on the... how much you want to bet it's just going to light up blue now, like all of a sudden? Yeah. All right, let's try that take again. The instructions are not clear on this. That's part of the problem. I think I can do that. All right, 3, 2, 1. All right, so this is the device that we configured already, and you can see the Moca light is blue here. I added this second device to the Moca network with the coax cable, but you'll notice that its Moca light is dark. It's not on the network at all because the other device is encrypted now. So what we're going to do is hit the MPS button on the encrypted device. I'm just going to hold it down for about 5 seconds or so. Unfortunately, you don't get any kind of indication as to when they are in pairing mode. So I found that if you hold the button down on the other one, run over to the second device and hold it down again, that's usually enough to get that blue light lit up there. And if we jump back to our computer screen here with the control panel and just do a refresh, we should now see two of these devices on the network talking to each other. And it looks like they're communicating encrypted at the same data rate as before. But we're going to put this to the test now and run another speed test and see what these encrypted speeds look like. Boop. I think that worked. What do you think, everybody? I think that worked. (111). This is encryption. And I'm just going to play this back so I can make sure I'm satisfied with it. 3, 2, 1. All right, so this is the device that we configured already, and you can see the Moca light is blue here. I added this second device to the Moca network with the coax cable, but you'll notice that its Moca light is dark. It's not on the network at all because the other device is encrypted now. So what we're going to do is hit the MPS button on the encrypted device. I'm just going to hold it down for about 5 seconds or so. Unfortunately, you don't get any kind of indication as to when they are in pairing mode. So I found that if you hold the button down on the other one, run over to the second device and hold it down again, that's usually enough to get that blue light lit up there. And if we jump back to our computer screen here with the control panel and just do a refresh, we should now see two of these devices on the network talking to each other. And it looks like they're communicating encrypted at the same data rate as before. But we're going to put this to the test now and run another speed test and see what these encrypted speeds look like. All right, that works. And we're almost done here with what we can do for today. Boy, this is a tough one. I knew this was going to be tricky just because there's a lot of things to think about and a lot of ground to cover. All right. So I need to go back to my test here. I'm just going to run the test real quick, and let's see if there's any bandwidth degradation. Yeah, it looks the same to me. So it does not appear that having encryption enabled has any impact on the network. Good stuff. And Rasmus is here from Denmark. And I'll tell you what, as a global community, we are all experiencing the same thing right now. We are all locked in our homes right now. And for me, it's no different than usual because I'm always locked in my home. But I usually go out, like I said, and have some human interaction every once in a while. And I'm not able to have that right now, unfortunately. OK. All right, so we're going to pick it up on this screen here. 3, 2, 1. All right, so now we have the two devices encrypted and talking to each other. Let's run our speed test again and see if there's any implications for overall bandwidth. And it does not appear to be the case here, at least 1-to-1. We're getting our gigabit speed here, exactly what we were seeing before when we were not encrypted. So it looks like on a single connection, you're not going to see much of a difference in performance. Let's take a look now and see how that dual connection will fare with the same test. And then we're going to have to do that later too. Because the question might be, does it impact the 2.5, like, you know what I mean? Like you might have enough overhead to cover it up to a gig, but can it do the 2 gig? And that we will not be able to answer until my splitter comes in. So that is it. 112 encrypted. 1 speed test. Okay. Cool. All right. Yeah, so CJH, we will not have a final verdict until maybe a week from now. It depends on when the splitter gets here. I ordered one from Amazon, and I would imagine that Moca splitters are going to be one of the lower priority items that they're shipping out in the interim. So this review will be delayed until I can properly test the backbone, because that's what kills me about this, is that these devices, like the whole story here, I mean, the MPS is a story, but the whole story is the fact that you've got a 2.5 gigabit backbone connection between the coaxial network devices, and we can't demonstrate it properly because the splitter I have is not fully Moca certified. So we're going to have to wait until I get one that will perform better. I was amazed by the difference that I saw between this the Moca splitter I've got here versus the non-Moca one that I had, because it did work without the Moca splitter, but it works better with it. All right. Okay, yeah, should have called Starbucks. Yeah, that's one of my, so my go-to Starbucks beverage is a mocha latte. I get the non-fat mocha latte 1 pump. That's my drink of choice, no whipped cream. And it's my treat every once in a while, because I have a Starbucks, but it takes me, so I have 2 Starbucks within, not far, but it's about a 30-minute round trip to get to Starbucks and come back. And it used to take forever, because the Starbucks in Connecticut are not like the ones in New York City. Like New York City are fast, like you're in and out. The ones here in Connecticut, they are a bit slower. So you get there and you're online for 5 or 10 minutes, and you gotta wait for the drink. So what I've been doing is the online ordering with Starbucks, and that's been great, because like if I'm in New York City, when I get off the train, I usually, we have a place that I stay there, so I just walk to the place, and right when I hit, like when I'm 4 blocks away from Starbucks, I place my order on the phone with the Apple Pay, and then it's just sitting there on the counter for me. It's just awesome. And I've been doing that in Connecticut now, so by the time I get to the Starbucks, it's usually done and waiting for me. All right. So that is it, folks. I am done with what I can do at the moment with these GoCoax devices, so I'll probably delay my final impressions until we can test the full backbone. And I got to go take the dog out for a walk and do all that good stuff. But I really appreciate everyone's feedback. I hope you are all staying healthy and you have everything you need at your home. It's good that, it's such an odd thing, because, I live in Connecticut, so we have winter storms that kind of delay things and slow down the standard daily life. We have hurricanes every once in a while. We had one year where we had a hurricane and a snowstorm within 2 weeks of each other. So we've had these things where life gets interrupted. And when that happens, it's because of the weather, and then power's not working, and you can't get things delivered. This is so different because it's worldwide. Everybody's experiencing the same thing. And everything is working. Like all the infrastructure, the utilities, all that stuff is fine. We have a virus that forces you to, which is, for most of us, is not going to be more than a little flu, but for a small group of vulnerable people has a much greater chance of causing a lot of harm. So we have to be changing our behavior to be considerate of others in need, or just others who have weakened immune systems, or other kinds of things that impact their health in a way that this virus treats them very differently than it might treat me or you. And it's I think for the times that we're in, to have to think about others in this way is really, it's interesting. This is hitting us at a point in time where I think we need to think about others more and listen to people, experts and stuff. So it's kind of, it's been really fascinating me to think about all of this. And I hope that we can do what we need to do to keep people that need to be kept safe, that we can keep the hospitals from getting overloaded, and we can get back to normal life. But at the moment, we can't do that. And the best thing you can do, if you're not a medical practitioner, or you're not a postal or UPS or FedEx driver, if you're not a retail worker, is, because those folks are really needed now to keep things moving as best they can. The best thing you can do is not leave your house. And I know my state has set up some unemployment benefits for people that are losing their jobs, but also people that are having hours reduced. So they're going to make, through the unemployment process, you can make up your hour. You can try to make up the difference of your hours. So there's some things out there. Check your state, because they're trying their best to try to keep people whole throughout this. I think what's needed is that banks and landlords and everybody just needs to hit the pause button and deal with the consequences. Those who can afford to pay their rent should pay it. But I think we just got to hit the pause button on a lot of stuff, because the entire world economy is going to be in total disarray. It's just never happened like this before. I mean, we had the flu in 1918, but the world was a lot less interconnected back then. So this is going to be a really, we're going to be studying this for a long time. I said to my daughter, who's a first grader, I said, you're going to remember this for the rest of your life. And she's like, remember what? So I had to do a little bit more explaining to her, but she's just disappointed there's no school. Lon.TV here during the Gulf War worked for a ventilator company and produced a ventilator that was going to be used if Saddam, oh wow, interesting, started playing around with chemical weapons. They made 15,000 portable ventilators in 4 months. Yeah, I think you'll see a mobilization to get these things manufactured. And my hope is that the actions we've been taking were enough to keep, and I know we say flatten, I think the flatten the curve thing is just, it's overused at this point, but I think the need to keep the medical load down, hopefully we did it at the right time. We'll never know because the testing wasn't up to par yet, so we don't know the extent of the infection. Because right now, I see a lot more people in my area now are testing positive. The first ones to test positive in my area have been tested positive. But the likelihood is that this has been around in the community for much longer than just this week, and we just didn't have the testing available to know. And if we knew about it earlier and where the extent was, I think this could have been a much more targeted approach, at least here in the U.S. But there'll be a lot of hindsight on this one, as many, with many things that have happened, these catastrophic events. So you look at 9/11, you look at Pearl Harbor, there was a lot of signs that people didn't see ahead of time that could have prevented it. And this will be another area where we now know the risk levels and what happens if you don't plan for certain risks. And that's certainly what's going to happen here. And Londog says he lives near Palm Springs, and many of the desert cities are retirement communities, and it's starting to ramp up with infections. And that's the biggest fear, is that you have areas where you have a lot of vulnerable people near each other, nursing homes, assisted living, retirement communities. It can be really interesting. I should bring this up too. So Monty brings up that it may have been around since November, December. Totally, because remember, this is COVID-19. And I just lost my monetization on the live thing. By the way, I'm going to say goodbye to the Amazon audience because we're getting off topic of what we were doing today. So I want to thank everyone on Amazon for tuning in. I'm going to stay on YouTube though, so don't worry, we're not leaving YouTube here. So I'm just going to end the Amazon stream. Thank you all for tuning in on Amazon. You can flip back over to YouTube if you want to keep watching me there. Remember, this is called COVID-19, which means it was discovered in 2019. And as you all know, I went to CES this year, and I think some of you who watch me on a regular basis know that I came back. I was pretty sick when I got back, and I don't get sick that often. If I get, and of course, ever since I had kids, I get sick all the time now because they're little disease carriers. But I came back from CES. I'll tell you the whole story. So the night before I left, we were done with all of our video work, and my friend that came with me, we went out to eat, and we were walking around like trying to. So we stayed at the Luxor, but the Luxor is connected to some other more fancier hotels. So they've got some really nice restaurants in the one that it's connected to. So we walked over through their little mall down to the thing, and I felt exhaustion. And it wasn't like I was tired. I felt like I was just without energy, and it was weird because I didn't feel. It was a very different feeling for me. I never feel like that. I felt exhausted, but not like I wanted to go to sleep. I just felt like I needed to not be moving. It was weird. And so I was telling her, I said, I'm just feeling like totally drained right now. I don't know what's wrong with me. So we went out to eat. I felt better after eating. Went back to the hotel room and went to bed. And then I got up very early the next morning to go home because we had a very early flight. And I was feeling okay, and then we flew from Vegas to Baltimore, and when I got off the plane in Baltimore, I was like, I'm feeling like I'm coming down. I felt like I had a fever. I just didn't feel good. I wasn't chilly or anything. I just felt icky, and I said, maybe I'll eat something again because I was starting to feel like that same exhaustion. So I said, maybe I'll eat something again. So I had some chicken soup at the diner at the Baltimore airport, and chicken soup always cures me. Didn't cure me that time. I was just like, I felt even worse after that. And even felt a little nauseous. And I don't get nauseous often. So it's like, man, I'm really not doing well. And then the worst thing was that our connecting flight, we got in too late for that. So I was stuck in the Baltimore airport for 4.5 hours. And I was tired and grumpy, and I just kept feeling worse and worse and worse. And then I got home like midnight is when the plane got in, and I had to drive home for like, I'm about an hour from the airport, so I had to drive home after that. And I just felt like that exhaustion wave was back. I wasn't feeling like I was going to fall asleep. I just felt like I desperately need to get home because I am just like exhausted and I just felt just not well. And I got home and I walked in the door, everybody was sleeping. The first thing I did was check my temperature, and I was 103.5. Like, holy mackerel, I got to deal with this. So I popped a few ibuprofens, which I guess they're saying you shouldn't be taking now. I don't know what. Popped a few ibuprofen, and my wife's like, you go sleep in the bonus room over there with the thing if you're sick. So I slept on the couch up there, and I woke up the next day, like I thought for sure I'd be better in the morning. Nope, woke up 103 still. And then I would take the fever medication. It would only work for like a little bit. And the weird thing is when I get a flu, I'm like nasally and all the other stuff that goes along with the flu. I had nothing but a fever. And then the second day, I had a bit of a cough. And it was not like the unproductive cough that they're talking about, but it was weird. I was like, I have a cough. I never get coughs. It was like, I got a cough. I was surprised because like day 3, I'm still having 103 fever. Couldn't believe it. And then the 4th day, the medicine started working better, the fever medication, the ibuprofen. So I took the dog out for a walk. I was starting to feel better, and then the exhaustion hit me again. I was like, oh, I got to go back and lay down again. Guess what? 103. So it was like 4 or 5 days. And then I got better. But what happened in the interim was my wife had one of these. So my wife's friends do all those multi-level marketing things. She doesn't do them, but she has the parties at our house. And so we had the pampered chef thing at our house the night after I got back when I was still like not feeling well. So I was up in the room, completely isolated from everybody, but there was kids over, and one of the kids, not my kid, but one of the other kids, came upstairs and just like barged into the room, and everyone's like, no, don't go in there, he's sick. And then I guess he used the bathroom I was using. And then like 3 or 4 days later, he had it worse than I did. He had the 100 and something fever. He had a cough, like every symptom, a kid. They took him to the pediatrician. They ran a flu test, didn't have the flu. So who knows? Because I couldn't, obviously this was before all of it was even before Wuhan province was shut down. And where I was there was a lot of people from, this is not, a generalization of the nation, but there was a lot of, it's originated in Wuhan, China. There was a lot of people from Wuhan, China at the events and things that I was at. So I think it's entirely possible that I had it, but I'll never know unless I could get it like an antibody test or something. But I did not have, Sal here is wondering if I had any diarrhea. That's a personal question. I don't think I did. If I did, it was not like ongoing. It could have been. I don't remember. I can't remember if I did or didn't. It wasn't like it was constant if it was. But yeah, so, it took about 4 or 5 days. So I got back on Friday night, late Friday night. I was down like Saturday, Sunday, and most of the day Monday. Because I did a weekly wrap up that Monday. But you could hear in my voice that I wasn't all better. And I think I wasn't totally better when I did that show, to be honest. And I told Jake not to come in. So like, don't come in, I'm sick. And that's how good of a boss I am. I don't let people come in to get sick from me. So there you go. And he works from home. He can work from home too. But yeah, so that was my experience. And I don't know if I had it or not. It could have been something else. But the kid that developed the same symptoms that I had, a couple days afterward, 4 or 5 days or whatever it was, didn't have the flu. And then his family got it. And the pediatrician's office told me that they've been seeing it go through their office before all this started. And now they said it's like, somebody called there the other day and they said it's been totally quiet. So I think it ripped through the whole school, at least in my town. I don't know. So we'll see. What I really want is I really want an antibody test available, because I think if I were to go and get tested, I would show negative because I don't have it. I'm not sick right now. But an antibody test would indicate whether or not I've had the virus before. And we don't have one in the United States yet. So, but I'd be more than happy to get one done, because I think really the key to all this is and I think it's going to be fairly clear, this is not like most infections work in a way that if you are infected and you're your immune system fights off the illness. You develop antibodies, which, depending on the disease, will last for a length of time. And I would say I'm probably within the window of time in which the antibodies are probably still detectable, if I have them. And it'd be good to know, because that allows me to assess the risk level that I have in going out of the house. It makes me more useful to society if volunteers are needed somewhere, because if I'm relatively immune to reinfection, then, I think what I mean? You could get things going a little bit quicker. So, but, in the meantime, because I don't know, I'm going to keep myself locked up, because we're discovering that you can be sick with this and not have any symptoms at all. Which is so weird about this, is that the scale of infection is so wide that you can't take any chances. And that's what we're not going to do. We cannot have a healthcare system that grinds to a halt. Just not possible. So, and I think that's why a lot of younger people are having a hard time. And I'll be honest, I had a hard time with initially assessing the risk load here, because this is long before everything started shutting down, but I'd asked the question of my friends in the medical profession, like, looking at these numbers, it doesn't look that bad compared to the flu. I mean, it's awful, but it doesn't look like compared to the flu it's that bad, until they told me the issues related to the fact that, yeah, it's not bad for 99% of the population, but that small percentage, when you scale it up, that has a greater chance of a severe reaction, suddenly cripples the medical system. And that's what we're dealing with right now. So in any event, those are my 2 thoughts on the whole situation. And I appreciate all of you tuning in. I'm going to go walk the dog, because it is 5 o'clock here in the US, which means I've got to start getting dinner ready for everybody. And what we're going to do tonight, I think, is one of our local pizza restaurants has got a really clever thing. They've got little pizza making kits for the kids. So they're going to sell you a box, some dough, some sauce, and some pepperoni, and some cheese, and you can make your own pizzas. So we're going to do that with the kids tonight. That's going to be fun. And we're going to have really good pizza dough from this pizza place that makes like delicious pizza. So we're going to go do that tonight, I think. And then tomorrow night, I'm going to be cooking other stuff. So stay healthy, everybody. Stay inside, or you can go outside, but just don't be near people right now. And we're going to get through this. Most of us who get it are going to be fine. Some of us who get it will need some medical attention, and others are going to really have a greater risk here. So the key is just making sure those folks don't get sick in large numbers, so that the healthcare system can manage this. And that's it. And by the way, if your healthcare system's overloaded, if you walk in with a heart attack, what's going to happen, right? I mean, there's even if you're not at risk with heart disease, like someone with lung disease is at risk with, if you're walking into a hospital with a heart attack with every ICU bed taken up, what's going to happen to you? And that's what you got to think about. Or if you get hit by a bus or something, you got to think about this stuff. So it's the things that you do impact others. That's what I want to say. Okay, enough of that. You all know better, and you all know what you should do. So I hope you are all doing well, and many of us have probably already had this, and we're going to be fine. But we got to do our part to make sure that everybody else is fine too. Okay, so I will see you all soon. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate all of you. And so if you have any comments, leave them down below. And this review will probably be a week out, because I've got to get the parts in. We got to get that splitter. So that will be here hopefully by next Thursday, maybe sooner. We'll see what happens with Amazon and their shipping schedule. All right, everybody, thank you very much. I will talk to you very soon. And thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back with more live streams, because I got no place to be but here. So, and you don't either. So this is good for both of us. It'll work out great. So stay tuned. More to come. Bye for now.